My fiancé demanded I put his family first, even at the cost of my sister's health. Now I'm reconsidering everything. Original post, October 25, 2023. Throwaway as my work friends are on my main and they don't know this is going on. Also, it is obligatory that this is on mobile, so spelling and grammar will be poor. This is a long one, but I'll try and keep it as short as possible. I, 28F, got engaged to my partner of 7 years, Rob, 29M, in May. Both sides of our family were really happy about this, and we had a big family meal 2 weeks after getting engaged. His brother lives 250 miles away and couldn't get here for that meal, so we decided to have a meal just for his family in late June when his brother would be back for the weekend. This weekend was arranged long before we got engaged, so he wasn't back just for the meal. Earlier this year, my sister Kim, 32F, got a serious eye infection that very quickly turned into an ulcer, which scarred her cornea and left it at a high risk of a perforation. She needed a corneal graft, but her surgeon was away for 4 weeks, so she was going to have to wait until he got back to have it. However, her eye didn't hold and it perforated the day I was supposed to be going to the family meal with ours brother. Kim's wife was at work and had her phone turned off, and our mom was away with our stepdad. So when Kim called me to let me know what was happening, I knew she would be at the hospital on her own. I immediately talked to my boss and he let me go early so Kim wasn't on her own. I texted Rob to let him know what was going on, and he texted me back to send Kim his love and to remind me about the meal that night. I ignored the comment about the meal as it was the last thing on my mind. Once I got to the hospital, I was taken back into a room where Kim was, to be greeted by 3 doctors and 2 nurses rushing around trying to help Kim. I was then informed that she needed to have an emergency operation to have her eye glued or else she would lose it. The problem was that they didn't have a surgeon at that hospital that could do it, and she needed to go to another hospital an hour and a half away. They asked if she would need transportation or if I could take her. I said I would take her. Once we got to the other hospital, we were told that she would be having the operation at 5:30 p.m. I knew then that I wouldn't make dinner and text Rob to let him know. He flipped out and basically told me to leave Kim at the hospital and have her wife pick her up after the op was done. At this point, I still hadn't been able to get a hold of Kim's wife. I told him that wasn't going to happen and that he was out of order to even ask me to do that. I then texted his mom and told her what was going on. She was really supportive and told me to stay with Kim and let her know how the op goes. A dinner can be rescheduled, Kim's health can't. I also spoke with his brother, who was equally understanding. I stayed with Kim. Her operation was a success and I got her back home about 9 p.m. Her wife had ordered some Chinese and offered me some, which I happily accepted as I hadn't eaten since lunch. With that, I didn't get home till about 11 p.m. and Rob was already asleep. Rob was very short with me for days after, and we ended up having a huge fight where he told me that I should have put his brother and family before Kim. He said he was embarrassed to go to the meal without me. I responded that I was embarrassed he thought I would put a meal before my sister's health. This led to another week of awkwardness between us before we finally sat down and we sorted it out. Or so I thought. 8 weeks ago Kim got her graft and so far everything is going really well with it. On Saturday his brother was here, so we went out for dinner with his family. His family were all asking about how Kim was doing and I showed them a picture of the stitches in her eye. I thought that everything had gone really well until we got home and he got really angry, saying that I shouldn't have brought up Kim's health issues and I shouldn't have shown them the picture. I argued that they'd asked about her and asked to see the picture. It ended with him telling me that I needed to put him and his family before Kim or else we weren't going to work. His family will come before mine once we are married, so I should get used to it. I went upstairs and packed a bag. I'm now at my mom's house and he's been bombarding me with texts and calls since I left. I do love him, but I will never put his family above my own family's health. I feel like he's expecting me to spend every holiday with his family and put their wants above my family needs, which won't happen. I'm very close to my sister and my mom. That's not going to change. So I don't really know how to move forward or if I even want to. Has anyone experienced anything like this before? If so, how did you deal with it? TLDR. My fiancé got mad that I missed dinner with his family because my sister needed emergency surgery and I was the only one available to take her. He is now insisting that I put his family before my own. I don't know how to move forward with him. Edit. For some reason it won't let me do a full update post even on my own page, so I'm just going to add it to here. Thank you so much for everyone that commented. I replied to as many as I could, but I read all of them. Warning, this is going to be longer than the original post. A lot has happened. TLDR. For those that just want a quick update, I left him and he's out of my house. His mom is seriously pissed at him and his brother has gone no contact with him for the foreseeable future. For those that want a longer version. Once I decided to end things with him, I knew that the main issue would be getting him out of my house. I own the house outright, My grandma died 5 years ago and left her house to my mom, who sold it and split the money between me and my sister. I then bought my house with that money about a year after she died. I got in touch with my stepdad's friend, who was a landlord the day after I wrote my original post, who then put me in touch with his solicitor. He didn't have time to see me in person that day, but we did have a phone call where he gave me my options. In the UK we have something called a Section 8 notice. This is a 14-day eviction notice and the solicitor said this would be the quickest way to get him out, however he could try and contest it if he wanted to, which would lead to court dates and could take months. I asked him to draw up the notice and date it for Friday, the next day. I'd already made the decision to end things with him after work on Friday, so that he could have the weekend to sort through his emotions before work on Monday. On Friday morning I texted Rob and asked him to meet with me at our local pub after work. He quickly agreed. Not only is the pub a public space, but my stepdad and a few of his work friends go in there every Friday after work for a few pints, so I knew he would be there to step in if I needed him. Thank you for suggesting this, Redditors. I also picked up the eviction notice on my lunch break, so I was ready to give it to him. Cost £250 but was worth it. When I got to the pub, Rob was already there and my stepdad was standing at the bar with his workmates. I sat down with Rob and got straight to the point. I told him that it was over. I couldn't be with someone who didn't give me any support when I was going through one of the scariest moments of my life and expected me to drop my family for him. It didn't matter what excuses he could come up with. I wasn't interested. I'd made up my mind and we were done. He stared at me in shock for what felt like an hour but was probably only a minute or so. He then started saying I couldn't be serious. We'd been together for 7 years and I was throwing it all away. I could never find another guy like him. I responded to the last comment with, I don't want a guy like you. That's why I'm ending it. I need someone who will support me when times get tough, not get annoyed that the world isn't bowing down to what he wants. I then handed him an envelope with the eviction notice in and my engagement ring. I told him I was giving him a few weeks to find a place and be out of my house. Then I stood up and walked over to my stepdad, who had bought me a much-needed drink, and stayed with him until my ex left, still looking in shock. I knew he wouldn't approach me whilst I was with my stepdad, as he has always been a little scared of him. This is obviously a very condensed version of what happened. Once I got back to my mum's house, I had one single text from him saying he wasn't moving out and was going to contest the eviction until I'd come to my senses and got back with him. We are not over, was how he ended the text. I just turned my phone off and decided to deal with the legal side of things on Monday. There was nothing else I could do. Saturday morning I woke up and turned my phone back on and had another text from him saying that he would move out if I paid him £10,000, as that's what he'd paid towards bills whilst he had lived at the house. He paid for half the electric, gas, Wi-Fi and Sky package. Note, the Sky package is only as expensive as it is because he has to have every sports channel known to man, so his half literally just paid for the sports channels. I'd already asked the solicitor about this though, and he'd assured me that I didn't owe him any money as he hadn't contributed to a mortgage or any renovations of the house. It was just general expenses. He also knew that I don't have £10,000 just lying around. Let's say I was irritated by this and decided to ring his mum to see if she could talk some sense into him. I'll call his mum Sandra to make it easier. She was appalled by what I told her and said she would speak to him. She called me back about an hour later and asked me to meet her at the house. Rob was on an away day to watch his football team play and wouldn't be back till about 10 p.m, so I knew he wasn't there. I met her at the house with Kim, and Sandra said that Rob's brother was on his way back home and they would have Rob out by the following afternoon. She hadn't even spoken to Rob, just his brother, but she promised he would be out. Sandra then asked me to walk her through the house, showing her exactly what was his and what wasn't, so he didn't take anything that didn't belong to him. The next morning I got a text from Rob calling me all the names under the sun for getting his mom and brother involved. I blocked him, and a couple of hours later, Sandra texted me to let me know he was out and staying with her. I thanked her and she told me that she would like to stay in contact, and I happily agreed to this. I went back to my house after work on Monday, changed the alarm code, and my stepdad changed all the locks for me. My stepdad is also arranging for a friend of his to install cameras around the outside of the house. This will be done over the weekend. Sandra rang me on Tuesday asking if we could meet up as she had some things she wanted me to know. So we met for lunch that day. It was at this time that she told me her ex was a controlling a-hole who was incredibly selfish, and the selfishness was what she had seen in Rob for so long. That's why she had commented on him being like his father, but she had hoped that was the extent of Rob's attitude and he hadn't picked up his dad's controlling behavior, which, to be fair, he hadn't up until this whole episode. She had left Rob's dad after he had punched Rob's brother in the face when he was 14 and Rob was 10. He had never laid a hand on her or their sons before, but one time was enough and she left with the boys. To her knowledge, her ex had never reached out to speak to Rob or his brother, and they hadn't spoken to their father in years. I didn't know any of this. All I had been told was that their dad wasn't in the picture and hadn't been for a long time, but Sandra had thought I knew, and that's why she hadn't told me before. However, she had found out on Sunday night that Rob was back in contact with his father and had been for the past year. His dad had been putting lots of thoughts into Rob's head about how he is the man of the house and his family is all that matters. This had fed into Rob's selfish tendencies and had amplified them tenfold. Sandra said that she had told him to find somewhere else to stay ASAP, as she couldn't even look him in the face. Then Rob and his brother had a huge argument that ended with his brother telling him that as long as Rob is in touch with their dad, then he will have zero contact with him. Even going so far as to tell him to spend Christmas with their dad because Sandra is going to his house and Rob isn't welcome. When Sandra took Rob's brother's side in all this, Rob flew into a rage and said he would move in with his dad. He then left the house, but came back a couple of hours later looking like he'd been crying. Turns out that his dad doesn't want him living with him and basically said he could be on the streets for all he cares. He's not putting a roof over a grown man's head. Sandra thinks that Rob is now starting to realize everything he has lost due to him listening to his dad and has seen his dad's true colors. Sandra is incredibly disappointed in him, but he's her son, so she is trying to be there for him as best as she can. However, she still wants him out as she doesn't trust him anymore. His brother still won't have anything to do with him. She has also told him to stay the hell away from me as I don't need to be brought into this, and he has promised her that he will. Only time will tell if that's true, but I do have him blocked on everything, and if he turns up at the house I will just call the police to get rid of him. The more Sandra told me about what had been going on behind my back, the more resolute I became about wanting nothing to do with him. I never want to see him again, if I can help it. So all in all, Rob's life is a shit show, but as long as he stays away from me then I don't care. I've been spending a lot of time with my sister and her wife as well, and my mom and stepdad, which has been great. I've never really been close to my stepdad, but this has brought us a lot closer together, which has been one huge positive out of all this. I'm not exactly happy right now, but I'll get there. There's still a lot of feelings that I need to unpack, and it will take time to move on from this whole situation. I don't think I will be dating for a while. I need to really get over all this and don't want to dump this on anyone else right now. For all those asking how Kim is doing, she's doing great. Had a hospital appointment on Monday and her consultant said her eye is healing, in his words, marvelously. So that's a relief. Thank you to everyone that reached out to me. I hope there won't be any need to update this again, so this should be my final update. For telling my ex that it's not my fault that he's homeless. November 26, 2023. So I 28 have posted on relationship advice before about my now ex 29M. The post and update is in my profile, but basically my ex-fiancé wanted me to put his family before mine even at the cost of my sister's health. I ended up breaking up with him over it, and he was forced to move in with his mom, who then found out that he had been in touch with his abusive dad, who was twisting his view on how a relationship should work. Last I heard was that his mom was kicking him out as she would not have anyone in her house that was in contact with her ex, and that he had tried to go live with his dad, but his dad had refused. I was completely NC with him, so his mom was the one that had told me this. I'll call my ex Rob and ex-mom Sandra to make things easier. I hadn't heard from Rob in weeks, but yesterday he showed up at my house. I had the chain on my door, so opened it with that still attached. No way would I let him in. He basically told me that he had nowhere to live. His mom isn't speaking to him and his dad won't put a roof over a grown man's head, his words not mine. He asked if I would take him back or at least let him live with me. No way in hell would I get back with him, and getting him out the first time only went easy because his mom stepped in to help. He had threatened to take me to court knowing that if he did it could take months to get him out, and then said he would only move if I gave him £10,000. I contacted his mom, who was furious about that, and she turned up with his brother and forced him out. I told him that there was zero possibility of him ever living with me again and that we were 100% over. He started shouting at me and calling me all sorts of names, so I threatened to call the police if he didn't leave and shut the door. I have cameras all over my house, so I caught everything he did and said on camera and saved it to a USB just in case. He then went crying to all our mutual friends and managed to get back to his mom. She called me and asked what happened. I told her, and she then informed me that she had put her house up for sale and was moving 300 miles away to be nearer her other son. She and Rob had a huge argument about this and she finally kicked him out. Since then he's been couch surfing, but with Christmas coming up, his friends aren't really happy with having him on their couches when they have kids and are meant to be enjoying the festive season. He's been kicked out of 3 friends' houses in 10 days. She told me I was right to refuse him, but I've since had other friends say that they feel sorry for them, and that I can just let him stay in my spare room until he's back on his feet. I then asked them to put him up, but they said they would but don't have room, and if they had a spare room like me then they would let him stay. My family and his are on my side, but I'm starting to doubt myself with what a couple of my friends have said. So Reddit, Aida? Edit. Just a quick edit as I'm going to bed. I've just spoken with the wife of one of Rob's friends and she's asked to meet me on my lunch break tomorrow. Apparently, Rob stayed with them for 2 nights before she kicked him out, and there's more going on than what I know of. She's going to tell me the full story tomorrow, but told me that I shouldn't let him anywhere near me and that he's staying in Airbnb so he does at least have a roof over his head right now. I'll try to update after I've spoken to her. Update, November 27, 2023. So I posted yesterday about my ex turning up at my house wanting me to let him move back in with me. I said no, but a couple of friends thought I should let him and that messed with my head. Rob is my ex. A few people told me to change my lock, etc. I did that and changed my alarm code, as well as my stepdad got his friend to put up 4 cameras around my house. I'm also going to start shutting the gate so that no one can walk up to the house without ringing the bell there first. I put in an edit that I was going to meet with one of Rob's friends' wives for lunch today, and I have to say that it was informative for sure. I'll call her Nat, 30F, and her husband Zach, 29M. So I went to meet her on my lunch break at a cafe near my work. It's a place that a lot of my co-workers go to, and I know the staff there as well. A few Redditors thought that she might bring Rob with her, so I wanted it to be somewhere I feel comfortable and have backup if needed. Turns out that I didn't need to bother about that. When I got to the cafe, Nat was there on her own. I grabbed some lunch and a drink and sat with her. We went through the usual small talk before she started telling me what had been going on. Rob rang Zach on Thursday morning saying he had nowhere to go and could he stay with them for a few days. Zach spoke to Nat and they agreed he could stay in their guest room. Rob went to their house after work and they had a long talk where Rob told them he has a flat lined up, but can't move in till January. Zach and Nat agreed to let him live with them until January as long as he followed some basic rules and paid for his own food. The rules were things like, no bringing women back there, and if he went out drinking he had to be quiet when he got back so he didn't wake their daughter who's 6. He agreed to all this and paid for a Chinese for them all that night. The next day after work Rob went to meet his dad in the pub for a few pints. When Zach and Nat went to bed Rob still wasn't home. They were woken up at about 2 in the morning by Rob arguing with a woman. Apparently, Rob had met this woman in a bar, took her back to Zach and Nat's house, got his pleasure and then told her to get dressed and fuck off once he was done. She had gotten angry, which started an argument where Rob was saying some horrific shit to her. Nat took the woman downstairs and got her a taxi, while Zach stayed upstairs arguing with Rob. Once Nat had got rid of the woman she went back upstairs and tried to calm Zach and Rob down. At this point Rob decided to take out his frustrations on Nat, calling her a bitch and telling her to do something useful and make him a sandwich before bursting out laughing like he'd made the funniest joke ever. This made Zach lose it and pinned Rob to the wall by his throat. Side note, Rob isn't a fighter at all, whereas Zach was an amateur boxer in his youth and can handle himself well. Nat managed to get Zach to let him go and Rob was shoved in the guest room and told to sleep off the alcohol. It's a miracle that Nat's daughter didn't wake up during this. The next morning Nat got their daughter ready and went to her mom's after telling Zach to get Rob out of their house. Zach agreed, and after Nat left he woke Rob up and told him to pack his shit and leave. Rob tried to apologize and begged to stay, but Zach was having none of it and kicked him out. Going off the timing, I think he left there and came straight to my house. On Sunday Zach texted Rob to meet up so that they could speak and they met up in a pub. Zach has been friends with Rob since they were 11 and has never seen him act like he has been doing, so he wanted to find out what was really going on. He managed to finally get the truth out of Rob. Basically, Rob has been in contact with his dad for a lot longer than he told us. By this point it's over 2 years. His dad is a raging misogynist that believes a woman's place is in the kitchen and bedroom. A man's place is to rule the house and be waited on hand and foot as well as deciding who can and can't be in their lives. He's been dripping this poison into R's ear and it's really taken a hold of him. Zach told Nat that he just doesn't recognize Rob anymore. Rob wants to start living his life the way his father has told him he should. When Zach pointed out that Rob's dad is 62, living in a shitty 1-bedroom flat, not had a real relationship since R's mom left him, has no friends, his family doesn't speak to him and that he's the type of guy that when he walks into a pub people finish their pants so they can leave and get away from him, Rob was furious. He told Zach that his dad is just misunderstood. Zach responded that people understood his dad and that's why they stayed away from him. He's toxic. This pretty much ended their conversation and Rob left. Zach did find out that Rob does have a flat lined up for January, so that was true, and that he's found Airbnb he can stay until the flat is ready at a minimal cost. Zach and Nat have also decided to go NC with Rob as they don't need that toxicity around them, but especially not around their daughter. A few Redditors had said it sounded like Rob was on drugs, so I asked Nat what she thought and she doesn't think so but can't be sure. She and Zach think that Rob is just so far under his dad's thumb now that he's completely changed as a person. He believes that everything his dad says is gospel. She did let me know that Rob has a burner IG account that he is using to check on my IG and I immediately made my account private. He had said something about seeing me waste money on a stupid amount of Christmas presents when I couldn't even help him out with Zach on Sunday. I'd been to a Christmas market on Saturday afternoon and had posted pics on IG. All of this just made my resolve stronger that he will not be getting anywhere near my house again. It also made me realize that I don't have any feelings for him anymore other than frustration at how he's acting and some sadness at how far he's fallen from the man I once knew. I thought that hearing he had another woman in his bed would annoy me, but there was just nothing. I couldn't have cared less. I thanked Nat for the info and we agreed to keep in touch. We won't be as close as we were when I was with Rob, but it feels good to have someone who knows the entire situation and has seen Rob's behavior with his own eyes. There were also some Redditors that told me to ditch the friends that had told me to let him stay with me. Unfortunately, I can't ditch them completely as they're part of the friend group and that would just cause unnecessary drama, but I will be keeping my distance from them and only talking to them when part of the group. I'm currently with my sisters and we are going to watch a Christmas film to get us in the mood to decorate all our houses this weekend, so I will be on and off for the next few hours if anyone has any questions. Thanks for the votes and giving me some perspective. Reddit isn't all bad. For anyone that's still around. December 19th, 2023. Still have people reaching out to see if I'm okay. A few hated me just using initials, so R is Rob. I really hoped that I wouldn't have to update again, but I've just had a call from one of Rob's friends and it looks like he's going to be spending Christmas in prison. Apparently, he went out on Saturday night with his dad and they got into an argument which turned physical. Rob isn't a fighter, however he is bigger and stronger than his dad, and it ended with his dad falling backwards and hitting his head off a wall, knocking him unconscious. The staff in the pub called the police and an ambulance, but Rob left before they got there. Rob's dad had to go to hospital, where he still is. I'm unsure of his exact injuries, but they're not life-threatening. He must also be awake as he is pressing charges against Rob. However, they won't keep him in unless absolutely essential at this time of year. Rob was arrested on Sunday morning at the B&B he's been staying at and had to appear in magistrate's court on Monday. Due to him not having a fixed address right now and the fact that his dad is still in hospital, he has been remanded on a Section 18 with intent. Unless he can find a permanent address to go to, then he won't be getting out until his trial at Crown Court. I know his mom is already with his brothers over 250 miles away, so I don't think she will be able to help right now. Finding this out has actually given me a sense of peace right now. I've been trying to ignore it, but the chance of him turning up and spoiling Christmas has been at the back of my mind ever since he turned up at my house. I'm hoping he stays in over Christmas so that I can just relax. OOP on Section 18 in her area. OOP, Section 18 is an assault charge. A Section 18 with intent is the next level up and is classed as intending to and causing grievous bodily harm to someone. I've been told that if found guilty, then it's usually a multiple-year prison sentence. Another mini update. December 23, 2023. I went round to N and Z, hereby known as Nat and Zach, to drop off a present for their daughter, a bottle of Bell's for Zach and a bottle of Prosecco for Nat for Christmas, and had a cup of tea with them whilst they filled me in on what's going on. Rob will be in over Christmas, but will likely get out early January. His lawyer is trying to get the charges reduced from Section 18 with intent to a Section 20. I only found out today that a Section 18 with intent is one step down from attempted murder and you're looking at double digits in prison if you get found guilty. Section 20 is a lot less severe and is usually a 2-year suspended sentence for first-time offenders, which he is. His lawyer has said that if he pleads guilty to Section 20, then CPS will lower the charges to get this one over and done with ASAP, as the courts are ridiculously backed up in the UK right now and prisons are full. Zach went to the B&B he was staying at and got Rob's stuff, which is now sitting in his garage as one last favor to Rob, Zach's words. He can't get in touch with me without my consent whilst he is locked away. The prison literally has to ring me and ask if it is okay that I get put on his approved call list, and only then is he allowed to ring me, which won't be happening. I've also spoken to his mom, who has basically washed her hand of him for the time being. She thinks that he needs to learn his lesson and maybe spending Christmas in a cell will teach him how much he's lost the plot. She has spoken to him and said that he's now saying the right things, but only time will tell if he means them. He is talking about moving to be near his brother to get away from their dad, so maybe he has seen the light. His brother has refused to go onto his call list, so Rob can't contact him, so I don't know how that will work. As for his dad, he is still in hospital with a broken hip and has had to have surgery to fix it. The broken bone and head injury is why the charges are so high right now. I feel like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders, knowing he can't ruin my Christmas. I'm just about to pack everything into the car and go and stay at my mom's until January 2nd, but thought I'd finish the year off letting everyone who's helped me and supported me through this know what's going on. Merry Christmas to everyone that celebrates it and hope everyone is doing well. Final update, April 13th, 2024. Hi all, sorry it's been a while since my last update, but I wanted everything to be finished before I updated again. Rob spent Christmas on remand in prison. He didn't get out until the second week of January, and that was only because his mom agreed to let him stay with her again. He had his plea hearing the first week of February, where he pleaded guilty to a Section 20 assault. He then had to wait until last week to get his sentencing court date. I didn't know how much actually goes into sentencing. They had to get a victim impact statement, a pre-sentencing report from probation, statements from his mom and brother. His barrister even reached out to me to give a statement saying that we had broken up and I'd asked him to leave the house. He used our breakup as an extenuating circumstance, saying that because of the breakup of our relationship and him losing his home, that had seriously impacted his mental health. The statements from his mom and brother also confirmed that he had lived in an abusive home when he was young, so he claimed he had PTSD because of that. These were all read out at his sentencing. He was going to get 3 years, but the judge knocked time off for pleading guilty and for mitigating circumstances. That left him with a 16-month sentence that was suspended for 18 months. As part of the conditions for his release, he isn't allowed anywhere near his dad, he has to go to counseling for his supposed PTSD, and he isn't allowed to drink alcohol. He even has an ankle monitor that tests his sweat every half an hour for alcohol and will alert probation if he gets a positive result. Luckily for him, his boss has let him go and work at their main location in the city that's half an hour away from here, and probation was happy for him to live there as well. He moved into a flat there this week, so I don't have to worry about running into him. I haven't spoken to him at all, and I don't want to either. He has tried reaching out through a couple of friends, but they've respected my decision and told him to move on with his life. However, I did speak to his mom yesterday and she said that she thinks he's depressed, but so far he's doing okay. She's the one I got all of this information from. It's a strange mix of emotion for me towards him, as I still care on some level, just not enough to keep him in my life. I know I need to keep him away from me, as I can never see him like I did at this time last year. It's crazy to think that it's only been a year since we got engaged. So much has happened. Other than those mixed emotions, I'm doing well. I've been hanging out with my sister and her wife a lot more, as well as catching up with friends. I'm still working at the same place and I don't see that changing anytime soon. For the people asking about my sister, she's doing good. She had a setback last month, but she seems to be over that now and has just been approved to have some form of newish stem cell treatment at the UK's biggest eye hospital. Which is fab news. She tried to explain it to me, but it involved them taking her blood and putting it into her eye, which grossed me out, so I told her to stop. However, because she's my sister, she then sent me pictures of what they do and Mum had to step in and tell her to stop. No matter how old we get, I don't think we will ever stop trying to annoy each other. So all in all, I think we're all moving on with life. Unless something big happens, then this should be my last post. I really want to thank everyone for their kind words and support. This has restored my faith that there are still good people out there. New update, June 30th, 2024, 2 months later. Hi all, I really hoped I wouldn't have to come back, but I've had several DMs on this account saying that a TikTok video is claiming that I'm back with my ex. I don't have TikTok, so I haven't seen it, but that's 100% not true. I haven't seen or spoken to him since my last update. As far as I'm aware, he's still living in the city half an hour away and is doing okay. I'm not really interested, to be honest. Rob's mom has accepted an offer on her house and has moved in with his brother until she can finalize the purchase of her house and find a flat she likes. Everyone else is doing well. My sister is the same and her eye is still healing. She's got some new glasses and says her vision is now nearly back to normal, so that's good. My sister and 7 other family and friends went out to Germany for England's first game, which was a lot of fun. Other than that, I've just been working and finding my new normal. Please don't listen to anything said about this on TikTok, YouTube, or anywhere else. I will not be getting back with Rob. That ship has sailed off the edge of a cliff. Relevant comments. Has Rob reached out to OOP? OOP. He was informed that I didn't want to speak to him and wanted to be left alone, and he respected that, thankfully. I just want us both to move on now. My parents canceled my 18th birthday to please my entitled sister, so I moved out with Grandpa, who then cut them off financially for good. Hello, I recently turned 18 a few days ago, but sadly my bratty elder sister insisted on my party being cancelled at the last minute, hence my parents cancelled it. I was very glad she wasn't even meant to be here for the celebration. But it's just my luck that strong Midwest storms caused all of the planes to be cancelled on the day she was scheduled to depart. 3 days before my birthday, she was meant to go to NYC with a group of pals, but for now they have had to postpone the trip. She has been rather offended over it, hence my parents have been walking on eggshells around her since they truly want to avoid aggravating her. She is the golden child of our family, hence they wouldn't dare, really. So much so, that she insisted my birthday be cancelled early on as, in her words, if she doesn't get to have fun, neither will I. Naturally, my parents sent the message to every single individual who had been invited without second thought. Much later in the evening, while I was eagerly waiting for all the visitors to arrive, but none were showing up, I discovered. When I asked my parents at last why none had shown up even by 7 p.m., they informed me they had called off the celebration without even asking me. They claimed my sister was somewhat disturbed and felt it would be inappropriate to throw a party while she was in this state. At that point, I lost all control and began yelling at my folks. It seemed simply to be unfair. My sister had always received different treatment from my parents, who expected me to sacrifice all my life and meet her every demand more than my own. And I always had as well. This was, however, going much too far. My sister was complaining about a trip that was cancelled for legitimate reasons outside of anyone's control, hence my parents had promised to plan my 18th birthday party, invited all of my friends and family so we could have a large birthday celebration, and now they had cancelled it without even notifying me. To exacerbate things, my parents had subtly informed every visitor that I had suddenly gotten ill, so I called off the party. Declaring I had a migraine and that using my phone was the last thing I needed, they asked that no one text me about it. Nobody texted me, hence I had no idea what was going on until the very last minute. I started fighting with my parents right away when they informed me what had transpired. Extremely offended as it wasn't my place to back down, I was yelling at them. Even then, their main worries were my being too noisy since they worried my sister would wake up from her nap. I kept yelling till my sister arrived downstairs, not giving a damn about that. Starting to defend our parents, she said they had done nothing illegal. She said that, as it would be cruel, she was the one who objected to everyone celebrating or partying while she was so distraught. She even said that I was the most entitled and spoiled person if I couldn't see that. Her utter arrogance following what she had done infuriated me to the point of me mindlessly starting to curse her. Things became physical as I grabbed her hair and tried to shake her. Our parents had to split us apart, and in the turmoil we missed the doorbell ringing. My parents opened the door to discover my grandfather waiting there after we at last stopped battling. Everyone in the family, including my parents, regards my paternal grandfather as a truly formidable force. Not great news for them was having him at the door. He began questioning why there was so much yelling and cursing as soon as he walked inside. Probably since I had been the loudest, he turned to me for responses. Usually, since it seemed petty, I wouldn't share with people the way my parents treated me, but I told my grandpa everything since this time I had nothing to lose. I told them I was unhappy with my parents and sister and that hiding the truth would not help them treat me any better, hence I saw no use in doing so anymore. It was time to stand up and I did. I also told him that I had dealt with my sister every day for the past 18 years, hence the bias toward her was not a one-time occurrence. But this episode was the last straw. I could not stand it anymore. My grandfather's expression was clearly shocked as soon as I spoke. He erupted at my father within seconds and started chastising him. It was then that I learned a lot of hitherto unknown facts. For the previous few years, my grandpa revealed he had been giving money to my parents every month since they had been trying to keep their business open and maintain the family. Basically, it was my grandfather who had been helping us all along, even covering the cost of the party my parents were ready to claim credit for. My grandfather chastised my parents for disappointing him with such treatment of me. From my conduct, he added, it was obvious that their devotion for my sister traumatized me. While my sister, being as stupid as ever, tried to argue with him, my parents silently let him talk. She said that her primary reason for requesting a cancellation of the party was her devastation at having her trip to New York, which she had been looking forward to for months, cancelled indefinitely. She said it was merciless of me to throw a celebration while she was in pain. But my grandfather did not have time for her lies. She was the perfect example of entitlement, he reminded her, cancelling my 18th birthday celebration only to suit her emotions. He told her the world did not revolve around her, and I believe it must have news value for her. My sister's argument with my grandfather infuriated him even more, and finally he informed my parents he would no longer be helping them. They were on their own now. Then he advised me to get ready and accompany him should I wish to move away, as obviously my parents only gave my sister top priority. The only thing my parents were offended about, even when my grandfather said this, was losing his financial backing. I was about to accept his offer, but they didn't seem to care that he volunteered to let me live with him. This merely confirmed what my grandfather said. They gave no damn about me. I thus wasted not a moment. While my parents tried to haggle and fight with my grandpa to keep his support, I walked upstairs. I hurriedly packed my belongings, then headed downstairs with my grandfather, who barely turned around one final time. He apologized to me for everything I had gone through as we were driving to his house. He remarked he ought to have done this long ago. Though I'm not sure exactly what that implies, I'm just rather happy to be living with him right now. My parents are the only ones dissatisfied with this arrangement, clearly. They have been assiduously attempting to reach me. Although I have not blocked them yet, I have not been answering their calls or messages either. Still, I have been reading their books. My parents continue to text me, apologize, and claim they lacked thoughtfulness. Since my sister was more delicate, and her emotions were more fragile, they acknowledge they always put her first. They now regret it as they never understood they were ignoring me in doing this. They worked very hard to give the impression that they were ignoring me simply because they felt I was strong enough to manage it. To be honest though, my sister is practically 5 years older than I am. And if anything, she ought to have been the one capable of sharing with our parents. I bought no single word from what my parents said. I understood they were just acting this way since Grandpa wanted me to return and enable him to keep supporting them. From them, all I wanted was one sincere apologies, yet it never came. It really began to irritate me. So this morning I told my father to stop texting me. I replied I didn't need their false apologies. I knew they were merely doing this to maintain Grandpa's support. I had finished working with them. When they canceled my birthday celebration without even asking me, they had told me just where their priorities lay. That was the straw shattering the camel's back. Today I was never returning. My dad responded instead of apologizing, saying he and my mother had mistreated me, but he was ready to set things right and do anything necessary. I seized the chance to explain to them that I would only agree to come back and discuss helping them if, and only if, my sister would no longer be living with us when I returned. They made a mistake by stating they were willing to do anything. She is 23 and has been working for the past 2 years. By now she should have accumulated enough money to move out. I thus don't even consider myself to be being so unfair, but my parents see me to be callous and silly. Now Ada for informing my parents that should my sister move out I will only be back in with them. You know, that kind of thing. My parents had always given her first attention. These little items added up even if they were trivial. Sadly, I never considered it sufficient enough to discuss with my relatives. Even if I had, I doubt it would have been justification for anybody wishing to have me taken away or offered to move out from. I simply remained quiet about it since else it would have infuriated my parents even more. Regarding my grandfather, I mentioned he is a force to be reckoned with since practically every member of the family loves and respects him. He had won numerous challenging cases and was among the greatest attorneys back in his day. Not to mention quite rich, he leads a very disciplined life and is quite morally pure. Clearly then, everyone in the family looks up to him. I could have told him how my parents were treating me if I had wanted to, but up until last year he was rather busy seeing my grandmother, who was nearing death. He was busy, and I wanted not to disturb him with my little grievances while he was already handling so much. He was grieving when my grandma went away, so I didn't believe it was worth mentioning. I am quite appreciative now that he is willing to assist me. Our connection has always been good, hence it is not shocking that he has volunteered to let me live with him until I start college. He has even informed me he will cover all of my college costs until I'm working. First update. Hello, hence I have decided to keep to the condition I proposed for my parents. Obviously, even if they kick my sister out, I have no intention of returning to live with them. I merely want to find out whether they really do it. That will reveal whether they really want me back or whether they believe my sister is more valuable than the financial support of my grandfather. I haven't told him anything about this, but to be fair, I recently learned of other things he had been hiding from me. I therefore believe it to be fair enough. I'm talking about the fact that my grandpa knew my parents didn't truly want me all along, but he had never taken anything about it. Actually, even if my sister lacked any traits that would justify her partial behavior, I never even knew exactly why my parents favored her. My grandfather recently told me that originally, my parents had just intended for one child. 5 years following my sister's birth though, my mother became pregnant with me. Although they intended to end the pregnancy, my dad made a mistake by alerting the parents of my mother about it. My mother's grandparents insisted that it would be inappropriate to turn away that gift should my parents be blessed with another child. They thus persuaded my parents to maintain the pregnancy. Sadly, while my mother was 8 months pregnant, my maternal grandparents were in a horrible vehicle accident. Both died from their wounds following several weeks of struggling for their lives. My mom was clearly heartbroken. During her pregnancy, she experienced a rather mental break whereby she began accusing me of bringing ill luck into her life. She spent a few weeks institutionalized, and when she returned she was quite improved. Still, my parents secretly felt bad about letting the pregnancy get this far. After I was born, they had every intention of having me adopted. But this time my paternal grandparents intervened. They forbade my parents from putting me up for adoption and told them they were crazy. Though they were reluctant, my parents raised me. When I challenged my grandfather about the comment he made when he took me back home, he told me all of this. Now I see what he meant when he said he ought to have done this long ago. I agree, he ought absolutely to have. In any case, I know I will never go back to my parents since I now know the truth about the reason they treated me differently. My present treatment of them is absolutely justified. For years, they punished me for something not under my control. At least I'm better than them since I'm punishing them for truly their fault. Though I still find my grandpa frustrating for not being honest sooner, I know these things are difficult to discuss, especially to a young child. Right now, he is the only person I can rely on. Thus I try not to get too enraged with him. But I felt bad about it when I spotted my sister waiting outside today following school. I so requested one of my male buddies to accompany me home. Being a football player, he is rather on the larger side, and I knew that if my sister did anything, he would be there to assist. We have been friends for a really long time, and I totally trust him. He is know-all, even specifics about my family. He agreed to stroll me back home. It was really starting to creep me out as my sister trailed silently. Halfway home I turned around to challenge her on what she was trying to do. She said she wouldn't want to chat in front of a stranger, but I told her I hardly wanted to chat with her at all. She then began telling me that my behavior has been the reason our parents have been really anxious and unhappy. She said yesterday that unless she was forced out of the house, our parents had at last warned her that I wouldn't come back home or even speak to my grandfather about helping them again. She thought I was being somewhat unjust, thus she came here to challenge me about it. I told her, if I can't be happy, neither can you, thinking it ludicrous of her to believe I would dignify this with a conversation. She used exactly the same reasoning to have my party called off, thus I reasoned it should also apply to her. She started yelling at me, calling me a vile human being, when I turned around to head home. I merely kept walking with my friend and turned her off. I never bothered to reply or look around. I suppose turning her off was what truly infuriated her, as shortly afterward, she attacked me and I was on the ground. I could feel her weight on my back as well as my own from my rucksack. Fortunately, my friend physically had my back since I sensed her being hauled off me in seconds. My companion was supporting her with one arm, hardly breaking a sweat as I at last got back on my feet and dusted myself. Knowing my sister's aggressive nature, I suppose I was right to have him walk me home. Her even belief she could attack me and get away with it infuriated me. I thus approached her, gave her a strong slap, and warned her that I would call the cops should she attempt anything humorous once more. I knew our beloved parents would not value any more drama, with all the turmoil she had already caused. She still had the arrogance to try and fight with me, but following that slap my friend and I turned away and she stopped following me. I told Grandpa all about it when I returned home. He was about to contact the police, but I told him it was not worth it, she was just a loser, and I knew she had learned her lesson. Besides, she was definitely already in a dangerous posture with our parents. When I eventually told my grandpa about the state I had created for my parents, I expected he would be offended, but instead he laughed alongside me. He felt it was clever and believed my parents deserved to be let run wild. That was that then. Though I'm a little hurt from being thrown to the ground, I feel good knowing I finally gave my sister some sense. She really deserved it, and it was a long time coming. I now simply hope my sister and parents leave me alone after learning this. Update 3. Hey, I moved out practically a month ago. I will only be staying with my grandpa for a few more months as September marks my beginning of college. Officially, school has ended right now. I graduated from high school a few days ago. The football player friend I described in my last report was my prom date. Indeed, several of you folks called it, and I wanted to share this joyful little nugget before delving into what transpired with my sister and parents. 2 days following my confrontation with my sister, I got a note from my parents. They claimed to have figured out their desired line of action. As I had always been envious and spiteful, they chose to let my sister stay with them since, in their eyes, I was obviously not the kind of person they wanted around her. My mother's older brother had chosen to be a partner and investor in the company, hence they no longer needed financial support and no longer wanted me around. They acknowledged the only reason they wanted me back was because they needed money help from my grandfather. Although I had known their actual motivations from the start, this disclosure had little effect on me. I'm really sure they believed this would damage my emotions. I neglected even responding to the message. They wrote me another message a few hours later, stating they were going to block me immediately because I was a disgusting human being, just like my sister had claimed. I guess this reality got under their skin. They tagged me as violent and unappreciative in addition to calling me terrible and merciless. Obviously violent since I had smacked my sister the other day, and it was not surprising that they disregarded the truth that she had initially attacked and pushed me to the ground. Better still, my sister must not have told them, hence they most likely did not know. They also branded me unappreciative since, despite all they had done for me, I still had the audacity to act as though they were negligent parents. They discussed how they had raised me, spent money on food, sent me to school, and clothed me. When parents bring up things like that while in a difficult situation, I truly find it perplexing. It doesn't make them unique. I consider it to be rather the minimum they could do for their children. But I suppose my parents believe the basic minimum is more than enough, hence I should treat them like my saviors for doing it. In any case, I wanted to reply but opted against it since it would waste time. I therefore blocked them first, and I was done before they could block me. My grandpa and I are living really nicely, and thus far most of the colleges I applied to have welcomed me. As promised, my grandpa will pay all of my costs. I am still waiting to hear from some of the better ones. We are still getting used to living together, and I do find myself feeling enraged at him sometimes for not removing me from my parents earlier. I am aware, though, that he had personal limitations and regrets not being able to support me when most needed. These days, we are working on it together. I never have to cope with my parents on my own ever more. Hopefully, they won't contact me either going forward. Update 4. Hi. I last updated 1 full year ago. I much appreciate the wonderful remarks and helpful DMs. Right now I am doing fantastic. My entire family, from what I know, has cut off my sister and dad. Although my mom's side of the family is still in contact with them, nobody from my dad's side speaks to them anymore because of my grandpa. Since I never discussed it, most people had no idea how I was being handled. However, as my grandfather began to tell others he was not in contact with my parents, they discovered the reason we experienced that fallout and my parents were ultimately shunned. It's karma, I suppose. I don't think anyone else could have caused this state of affairs except themselves. Although I don't know what my sister has been up to, I heard from a few people that she moved out and is now living alone last week. To be honest, that news motivated me to update all of you here. I am still going strong, as is my boyfriend. We get together on the weekends since I head home every weekend. My college is really near. I truly feel like a brand new person even though I have made many acquaintances here. Now closer than ever, my grandfather and I have also worked on our relationship. I doubt anything can ever change. He is my favorite person on earth. Though in the past he has made blunders, nevertheless, nobody else has. We have moved on from everything and I have forgiven him. Indeed, right now I am really content. I appreciate you folks. My stepmom tried to steal my college fund, accused me of awful things, and got me kicked out. Now the truth about her lies is finally unraveling. About my college fund, I, 18M, am in a tough position with my stepmom, Megan, 40F, and I am beginning to doubt everything. Bear with me since this is a long and complex matter. Some background. When I was 10, my parents split. It was an ugly split that left me feeling alone and confused for a long period. When I was 14, my dad, 45M, remarried Megan. She brought 2 children from her first marriage, Jack, 16M, and Emma, 13F, into our household. Though Megan's continuous attempts to push the one big happy family narrative, the change wasn't easy and we have never really felt like a unified family unit. Having kept a 3.8 GPA across high school, I have always been a good student. My ideal is to study engineering in a famous university. For the past 3 years, I have volunteered at the neighborhood animal shelter and competed in multiple robotics club contests. At least until lately, Dad has always been encouraging of my academic aspirations. Dad sat me down for a conversation a few months ago when I was beginning to apply to colleges. He mentioned a sizable education fund he had been building for me from birth. At most elite colleges, it's sufficient to pay living expenses and tuition. Thrilled, I felt as though my diligence was paying off and my aspirations were within reach. That evening, we spoke about several colleges, debated programs, and made plans for campus visits for hours. That was among the nicest talks I had with Dad in years. The trouble began when Megan learned of the college fund. It was first subdued. One morning, Dad had already departed for work when she cornered me in the kitchen. Her voice came out as laid back, but her remarks had a slant. She said, "You know, I worked my way through college, when I was your age. Applied for loans and worked part-time. It truly helped me to appreciate money." I tried to dismiss it, telling her I also intended to work a part-time job to help with extra costs. Megan countered, "But you really don't really need to, do you? Not with all that money merely handed to you." Megan's criticisms become more regular and pointed from there. She began bringing up tales of self-made people at meals, always staring pointedly at me. She would discuss her cousin, who paid off her college loans in record speed and is now a successful entrepreneur, or her friend's son, who is working 3 jobs to pay for his engineering degree. Our dinner table started to regularly feature these tales, always followed by remarks about responsibility and the need of hard labor. Dad would nod along, apparently unconcerned about the insinuation that I was somehow less conscientious or diligent for taking his aid. The worst thing is Megan started controlling Dad. She mentioned to him how handing me the money would cause me to become dependent or hinder me from developing. She keeps urging me, like everyone else, to take out loans or work my way through college. I heard them in their bedroom one evening chatting. "I'm just worried about him, honey," Megan said. "Giving him all that money, do you not believe that could lead to laziness? Perhaps we could discuss paying for tuition simply or cutting the budget to cover living expenses." Dad mentioned something about how he had always intended to assist me with college, which terrified me, but he also said Megan might have a point about the need of working for things. Dad's began to wiggle since then. He is suggesting perhaps cutting the fund or paying just for tuition but not for living expenses. He seems to have forgotten all we have discussed about my future, all his pledges of support. I tried approaching Mom about this, but she and Dad hardly speak at all. She became irate when I told her over the phone about the circumstances and advised me to defend myself against that woman from pushing me about. Simple enough for her to say, she doesn't have to live with Megan. Though well-meaning, Mom's guidance doesn't truly assist me negotiate daily conflict at home. Things peaked last week when I heard Megan chatting to Jack in the kitchen. As I was walking to my room, Megan said, "Don't worry about college, honey. I'm trying to get some of your stepbrother's college funds sent toward your future. Given you and Emma won't, it is unfair that he receives such a big payout." What I was hearing defied belief. Megan not only sought to take away my education fund but also actively sought to donate it to her own children. The unfairness of it caused me to see crimson. I walked straight into the kitchen and approached her without thinking. Megan opened her eyes in astonishment. "Were you listening in?" she inquired. Too furious to give her any thought, I ignored her allegation. "You mean you're handling my college fund? Dad has been saving that money for me from my birth." Megan's face grew stiff. "I'm just making sure every child in this family receives fair treatment," she stated. "Jack and Emma won't have the same opportunity, thus it is not right for you to get such a huge amount." What I was hearing defied belief. "But it's not your money to distribute," I said. "Dad kept that for me long before you even started to show up." Furious, Megan responded, "Watch your tone, young guy. Right now you're quite selfish. Have you given your step-siblings' futures some thought? I thought I was losing it. Egotistical? For wishing to pay for my school with the money my dad saved? How can that make me conceited?" Megan opened her arms. A really conscientious adult would see the value of familial fairness. If money worries you, maybe you could look at community college. That would most definitely be a more humble, fitting decision. I froze. Her arrogance in suggesting made me furious. Jack only gazed at the floor, obviously uncomfortable, as I looked at him hoping for some support. "This is insane," I finally managed to reply. "I'm going to bring this up with Dad." Megan grinned and said, "Go ahead, but keep in mind, your father and I are partners. About what is best for this family, we decide jointly." I bolted from the cooking area. I had to explain what was occurring to Dad, but every time I tried to get him alone since then Megan has been there, hovering and guiding the conversation. The next several days were strained. Megan behaved as if nothing had happened, but her haughtiness set my wrath boiling. Always with a sharp glance in my direction, she would remark over dinner on the value of money, responsibility and not giving handouts. Dad looked completely blind to the currents of conflict. He would nod in time with Megan's remarks, sometimes adding his own story on the need of diligence. It seemed as though he had forgotten all our earlier talks on my future and all of his assurances of support. I got more and more alone. Clearly uncomfortable with the circumstances, Jack and Emma avoided me yet were reluctant to challenge their mother. Driven to maximize scholarship possibilities in case of need, I pushed myself into my college applications. One evening, I at last caught Dad alone in his study and said I wanted to chat to him about something. Dad turned from his computer, wrinkled brow. "What about, son?" I drew in a long breath. Megan has been voicing some opinions on the money distribution. Regarding myself, perhaps not utilizing it at all. We had a plan, I thought. Dad's look was difficult to decipher. He moaned. "Your stepmoms raised some reasonable comments on responsibility and the value of working for things," he stated gently. "Maybe we offered you the whole amount too quickly." I thought the floor was falling under me. "But as Dad promised," I said. "I've worked so hard, kept my grades, done everything you asked of me." Dad seemed tense. "I know, son, we're proud of you, but Megan thinks, since when Megan gets to decide my future?" I stopped, rage at last breaking through. "She is not my mother though. She was not there during those years you were saving for my schooling." Dad's countenance grew stiff. "Megan is my wife and a member of this family." "She's right." "More than your pledge to me?" I questioned. The study door opened and Megan came in before Dad could respond. "Is everything okay?" she inquired. "Everything's good," Dad remarked. Our conversation was only on college choices. Megan cracked a smile. "Wonderful. I was considering us all sitting down this weekend to investigate some more reasonably priced colleges, maybe with decent work-study options." Dad only nodded as I quietly begged him to say anything, to defend me. I felt misled and demoralized leaving the study. Megan had clearly emerged victorious. My aspirations of enrolling in a prominent university were withering. Some additional points that I believe are relevant. 1. Megan has not worked outside the home since marrying my father. She always talks about the necessity of financial independence, but she is fully dependent on my father's income. When I brought this up once, she became really defensive, claiming that being a stay-at-home mom was the most important profession in the world. 2. When I brought up the unfairness of potentially transferring my education fund to Jack and Emma, Megan says it's about family equality, but she willfully ignores the fact that my father established this fund before she was born. She also ignores the idea that Jack and Emma's biological father is still in the picture and may contribute to their education money. 3. I tried to make a compromise by suggesting that I work part-time while in college to offset some expenditures, but Megan rejected this as not being responsible enough. She seemed to believe that until I am struggling and anxious about money, I am not learning the proper lessons. 4. Dad appears to avoid disagreement and frequently agrees with Megan to keep the peace. I'm concerned that he'll give in to her pressure over the college fund. He has always been this way, including when he was married to my mother. I believe this contributed to the breakdown of their marriage. 5. I've pondered contacting my grandparents, Dad's parents, about this, but I'm concerned that it may lead to further family strife. They've never been Megan's fans, and I'm afraid that if they get involved, it will just make the issue at home worse. 6. Megan is continually pushing the one big happy family narrative, yet her actions do not reflect her words. She treats Jack and Emma differently than she does me, and it's becoming increasingly clear. For example, she never questions their spending habits or lectured them on financial responsibility. 7. I'm beginning to wonder if Megan is so adamant about me utilizing the college fund because she wants to use it for something else, such as a large family vacation, home renovations, or paying for Jack and Emma's education. But I have no proof of this, only a suspicion. 8. Megan has started saying that I should be more appreciative for what she and my father have done for me. She talks about how much they've given to provide me a decent life, but in my opinion, it's my father who has made the sacrifices, not her. 9. I'm beginning to feel like I'm being gaslit. Megan will tell me one thing while we're alone, but then utterly deny it or twist her words when Dad is present. It is making me rethink my own memories. 10. I'm scared that if I push Megan too hard, she'll convince my father to kick me out. I'll be 18 shortly, and I know they won't be legally obligated to support me anymore. I feel as if I'm at a crossroads. If I stand up for myself and insist on using the college fund, I risk jeopardizing my connection with my father and making my home life miserable. If I give in to Megan's demands, I may be giving up on my aspirations and setting myself up for a future of financial difficulties. Am I an asshole for wanting to accept my father's college fund? Should I simply suck it up and figure out how to pay for college myself? I feel like I'm losing my mind here, and I could really benefit from some outside perspective. ETA, I felt I needed to clarify something regarding the college fund situation. When I mentioned the college fund that my father told me about a few months ago, it wasn't because I felt entitled. This fund surprised me, but it was consistent with my father's support of my academic endeavors throughout high school. Although I was unaware of the exact fund until lately, my father had always promised to sponsor my college tuition if I maintained decent grades. This pledge is why I worked so hard on my studies, maintaining a 3.8 GPA. I understand that I am not automatically entitled to this money, but I am really appreciative of the opportunity it symbolizes. If my father had informed me he couldn't afford to help with college, I would have understood and looked for other means to pay for it. My dissatisfaction stems not from a sense of entitlement, but from the abrupt change in plans following the fund's disclosure. Update 1. It has been nearly a month since my previous post, and I wish I had better news to report. Things have gotten worse, and I'm writing this from my friend Mike's guest room. I've been kicked out of my house, and my relationship with my father is in shambles. Here's what occurred. Following my last post, the difficulties in our residence worsened. Megan's comments concerning my college fund become increasingly regular and pointed. She'd bring it up whenever possible, usually with a sarcastic remark about how I needed to understand the importance of hard work and independence. Dad remained frustratingly passive, rarely intervening and frequently agreeing with Megan's statements. I tried to keep my head down and concentrate on my college application. I spent the majority of my time in my room, avoiding family meals and public settings as much as possible. But Megan seems to regard this as a personal issue. She began accusing me of being antisocial and ungrateful, stating that I was intentionally withdrawing myself from family activities. The breaking point occurred last weekend. I had finally received an acceptance letter from my dream school, a prestigious engineering program that I had been striving toward for years. In my excitement, I forgot about the ongoing issues and dashed downstairs to inform Dad. Megan was in the kitchen when I found him, but I was too excited to care. Dad's first emotion was one of gladness. For a moment, it felt like old times as he hugged me and began asking about the program. But Megan cleared her throat, and the atmosphere in the room altered suddenly. She began to complain about financial responsibility. I could not handle it anymore. All of the irritation and fury that had been building up over the previous months spilled out. I addressed Megan about her persistent intervention, attempts to redirect my education finance, and manipulation of my father. I told her she had no right to try to take what my father had been preserving for me since before she was even in the picture. The argument immediately escalated. Megan's face became red with rage as she began yelling about how ungrateful and selfish I was. She accused me of not accepting her as a member of the family and of constantly treating her and her children as outsiders. Dad tried to interfere, but neither of us were listening at the time. In the heat of the moment, I uttered things I regret. I referred to Megan as a gold digger who was just interested in my father's money. I accused her of attempting to take my college savings for her own children. I even mentioned that Mom hadn't worked a day since marrying my father, despite her incessant lecturing about financial independence. Megan's reaction was explosive. She turned to my father and informed him, through sobs, that she couldn't live like this anymore. She claimed she felt frightened in her own house and that I had been unpleasant and abusive against her for years. Then she dropped the bombshell that changed everything. Megan said that I had been making unwanted approaches towards her for several months. She said that when we were alone, I had cornered her, made sexual comments, and even attempted to touch her improperly. She pictured herself as a fearful victim who had been too afraid to speak out until now. I was struck into silence. The claim was so absurd and absolutely false that I couldn't even gather words to defend myself. I looked at my father, expecting him to see through the obvious lie, but the instant I saw his expression, I knew. He was looking at me with an expression of hatred and despair that I had never seen before. I tried to defend myself and explain that Megan was lying, but Dad would not listen. He appeared to have already made up his mind. In an angry voice, he told me to go to my room while he and Megan decided what to do. I spent the next 3 hours pacing around my room, alternating between anger and astonishment. I couldn't comprehend how my father could believe such a blatant falsehood. I tried to think of methods to defend my innocence, but it was my word versus Megan's, and it was obvious whose side my father had taken. Later that evening, Dad visited my room. His expression was grim, and he couldn't even look me in the eyes while speaking. He stated that he could not have someone who behaved so badly living under his roof. He told me I had till the end of the week to find another somewhere to live. I tried again to argue my point, to persuade him to see reason, but he refused to listen. He just kept saying that he was disappointed in me and that he never imagined I could do something like this. Before leaving, he handed me an envelope containing some money to assist me get started. I packed my possessions in a fog, unable to grasp what was going on. Jack and Emma avoided me totally, no doubt having heard some version of Megan's lies. I tried one final time to talk to Dad, to make him see the truth, but Megan was always there, playing the role of the devastated victim. I contacted my mother, explaining the circumstances through tears. She was outraged and wanted to confront Dad and Megan right once, but I begged her not to. I was scared it would simply make matters worse, and a part of me still hoped Dad would see sense on his own. Fortunately, my friend Mike came through for me big time. When I explained what had happened, he instantly offered his guest room. His parents are out of town for a few months on a work assignment, so I can stay here without bothering his family. Now I'm trying to adjust to living at Mike's place. He's been so supportive, but I can't stop feeling like a burden. I'm trying to help where I can, cooking meals, doing chores, but it's not the same as having my own space. I've been oscillating between anger and sorrow. How could my father believe such a terrible lie? How could he abandon our relationship, all those years of memories and trust, based solely on Megan's word? And how could Megan accomplish this? I knew she didn't like me, but accusing me of something so heinous, purposely destroying my connection with my father, is an act of cruelty I can't fathom. I considered visiting my grandparents, but I'm concerned about how they'll react to Megan's claims. What if they believe her too? I couldn't stand to see the same disdain and sadness on their faces. I've also contemplated going to the police to make a report about Megan's bogus claims, but I'm not sure how effective that would be. It's not like she's made these accusations in public or attempted to file charges, and I'm concerned that involving the authorities will further strengthen my father's trust in Megan's falsehoods. My mother offered to let me remain with her, but she lives in another state. Moving there would mean giving up on my dream school and the future I'd been striving toward for years. But I'm beginning to question if I have any other options. Megan's lies have damaged everything, and there appears to be nothing I can do about it. My father, the guy who was meant to know me better than anyone else and to have my back no matter what, has decided to think the worst about me without even giving me the opportunity to explain myself. I've been reviewing every conversation I've had with Megan, trying to figure out where this lie came from. Was it merely an opportunistic move when she saw how angry I was during our dispute, or had she been preparing for this for a long, waiting for the ideal time to get rid of me forever? Regardless, the level of calculation and brutality involved sickens me. I don't know what will happen to my college fund now. Will Megan offer everything to Jack and Emma? Will my father use it to pay for my dream school, despite the fact that he believes I'm a predator? I've been attempting to figure out my future moves. Mike assisted me in finding a part-time job at a nearby grocery store. It isn't much, but it will let me contribute to household expenditures and save some money for the future. Every time I try to think logically about my predicament, I am overcome by a flood of rage and hurt. I've pondered contacting Megan's ex-husband Jack, and Emma's father. Perhaps he has some insight into her conduct, or has dealt with her lies. But I'm frightened of opening the can of worms. The truth of my situation is beginning to sink in. With little cash and no permanent place to reside, I rely on a friend's generosity. The unfairness of it all is almost unbearable. I did everything correctly. I studied diligently, remained out of trouble, and worked hard to achieve my goals, but all of that has been taken away from me in the course of a single weekend because of one person's falsehoods. I'm trying to stay strong and not let this break me. I keep telling myself that the truth will come out someday, that my father will understand what Megan has done and come to me to apologize. But with each passing day, that dream seems more and more like a juvenile fantasy. I am not sure what my next update will include. For the time being, I'd like to thank everyone who read my original message and responded with advice. I'm sorry I couldn't take action on most of it before everything broke apart. If anyone has been in a similar scenario or has any ideas on how to proceed from here, I would be really grateful. I feel lost and alone, and any advice would be appreciated. I'll try to post another update as I have more information. Until then, wish me luck. I have a hunch I will need it. Update 2. It's been approximately 2 weeks since my previous update, and a lot has happened. I'm still residing at Mike's apartment, but there was an unforeseen development that I needed to inform you of. I was at work, refilling grocery store shelves, when I received a call from my grandparents. I nearly didn't answer. I'd been avoiding calls from unfamiliar numbers, scared it was Dad or Megan calling, but something urged me to pick up, and I'm glad I did. When I heard my grandmother's voice, I knew something was wrong. She seemed frightened and bewildered, asking if I was all well and secure. I had no idea what was going on until she indicated that Dad had called and told them some troubling news about why I had left home. I became quite concerned that Megan's falsehoods had expanded beyond simply Dad. I asked my grandma what Dad had told them, and her answer confirmed my darkest suspicions. Dad had told them about Megan's phony claims, presenting me as a predator who was making unwanted advances on my stepmother. I felt terrible. It was bad enough that Dad believed these lies, but now my grandparents do too. I couldn't bear the notion of them gazing at me with hatred and despair, like Dad did last night at home. But as my grandmother continued speaking, I recognized something. My grandparents were doubtful of Megan's charges, unlike Dad, who believed them right away. They knew me and had seen me grow up, and something about this scenario didn't sit well with them. That's why they called, not to condemn me, but to hear my side of the tale. For a while, I considered brushing it off, telling them it was all a mistake and changing the subject. I was so exhausted defending myself against these nasty lies. But then I realized that this could be my only chance to tell the truth and have someone in my family trust me. So I took a deep breath and told them everything. I started from the beginning, outlining the college fund and Megan's growing attempts to intervene. I told them about the arguments and Megan's plans to redirect the money to Jack and Emma. I explained the last argument and how Megan made up these horrible charges as she felt she was losing control of the situation. As I spoke, I could hear my grandparents' reaction shift, from astonishment to shock to fury. They offered questions to clarify ideas, but they largely just listened. When I finished, there was a long pause on the other end of the line. Then my grandfather spoke, his voice harsh with controlled rage. He stated they believed me and knew I would never do the things Megan accused me of. He questioned why I hadn't come to them sooner, and I said that I was worried they wouldn't believe me, that they'd side with Dad like he had with Megan. My grandma told me that they would always be at my side, and that they were sorry I had been going through everything alone. Then she said something that made me freeze. They were going to talk to Dad. I panicked a little, afraid that confronting Dad would just make matters worse, but my grandparents insisted. They stated that they could not stand by and let their son ruin his relationship with his child over a falsehood. They promised to call me back once they'd spoken with him. The following few hours were terrible. I couldn't concentrate on work. What if Dad doesn't listen to them? What if this only made him angry, reinforcing his belief in Megan's lies? Or worse, what if my grandparents changed their views after speaking with him, believing Megan was telling the truth after all? My phone finally rang again, and I answered it. My grandfather's voice was solemn as he described what had occurred. They contacted Dad and confronted him with what I had told them. Dad tried to defend Megan at first, but they wouldn't allow him to get away with it. They demanded to know how he could believe such dreadful things about his own son, and how he could toss me away without even attempting to investigate. Apparently, the conversation became heated. My grandfather stated that for the first time in years, he had raised his voice at his son. He warned Dad that he was making a terrible mistake, that Megan was manipulating him, and that he risked losing his relationship with me forever. Then my grandfather dropped a bombshell. He informed Dad that if he didn't fix the situation, if he didn't at least try to listen to me and find out the truth, they would change their mind. All of their assets, including the inheritance Dad had always imagined would be his one day, would be transferred to me instead. I was stunned. I'd never considered my grandparents' inheritance, let alone how it may affect my future. To learn that they were willing to use it as leverage to persuade Dad to see reason was staggering. My grandmother then picked up the phone. She told me that they were completely behind me and would do anything to help me get through this. They offered to let me stay with them and help me figure out my college situation. They even promised to pay a lawyer if necessary to protect me from Megan's additional bogus charges. I was beyond grateful, but yet afraid. This seemed to be getting out of control, becoming more than just a family fight. I asked them how Dad had reacted to their ultimatum. My grandfather stated that Dad was frightened into silence at first, then became angry. He accused them of taking sides without understanding the whole facts and of attempting to blackmail him. Dad ended the call by hanging up on them. We're currently in a waiting game. My grandparents have given Dad a week to contact me and attempt to hear my side of the story. If he doesn't, they say they'll carry out their threat about the inheritance. Part of me hopes that this will be the wake-up call Dad needs, prompting him to examine Megan's story and recall who I truly am. But another part of me is scared that this would only exacerbate our differences, that Dad will interpret this as me turning his folks against him. My living situation with Mike is still fine, but I know I won't be able to stay here forever. His parents will return in a few weeks, and while they may understand the situation, I cannot impose it on them. My grandparents' offer to let me remain with them is intriguing, but they live in a different state. I'm still working at the grocery store to earn money for college, but it's little compared to what I'll need. I've looked at scholarships and loans, but without access to my college fund, the numbers simply don't line up. The idea of giving up on my preferred school, settling for a cheaper option, or deferring college entirely is upsetting. I've also been dealing with the emotional consequences of all this. Some days, I can barely get out of bed, overwhelmed by the injustice of it all. Other days, I'm enraged, ready to confront Dad and Megan and push them to accept the truth. Mike's been fantastic, listening when I need to scream and giving me space when I need to be alone, but I know this scenario is also worrying him out. My mother has been phoning on a daily basis, offering to let me come and stay with her. I appreciate her support, but I can't leave. Furthermore, a small petty part of me does not want to give Dad and Megan the joy of driving me away totally. So now I'm waiting. I'm waiting to see if Dad will reach out and be willing to hear the truth. I'll try to post another update as I have more information. Until then, wish me luck. I have a feeling I will need it. Update 3. It has been 3 months since my last update, and the issue has drastically escalated. I'm still absorbing everything that has happened, but I'll attempt to explain it as simply as possible. Brace yourselves, for this will be a lengthy one. I received a call from my father about a month after my grandparents issued an ultimatum to him. His voice trembled, and he sounded like he had been crying. He asked if we could meet in person because he wanted to tell me something important. I was nervous, but I agreed to meet him at a nearby coffee shop. When I saw him, I hardly recognized him. He appeared to have aged years in just a few months, with dark circles beneath his eyes and a disappointed stoop in his shoulders. As soon as we sat down, he burst into tears and begged for my forgiveness. He said that he had found the truth behind Megan's falsehoods. Apparently, she had been cheating on him with her ex-husband, Jack, and Emma's father for several months. Not only that, but she was pregnant, and the timing indicated that the baby couldn't be my father's. Dad overheard Megan on the phone with her ex, discussing their future plans. He didn't get the complete picture from that single talk, but it was enough to raise his suspicions. He began paying more attention, seeing contradictions in Megan's stories and actions. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place when Dad arrived home early one day and discovered Megan and her ex in a compromising position. When challenged, Megan did not instantly reveal everything. Instead, she attempted to deceive Dad, claiming that he was hallucinating and that her ex was only there to talk about something concerning the children. But Dad wasn't buying it anymore. He wanted the truth, and what he discovered was far worse than he had anticipated. Megan and her ex had reconciled a few months earlier, allegedly over difficulties with Jack and Emma. One thing led to another, and they began an affair. However, as the truth developed, it became evident that Megan's dishonesty extended beyond the affair. She stated that she had been dissatisfied in the marriage for some time, feeling as if she had rushed into it without properly moving on from her previous relationship. Instead of dealing with these concerns honestly, she tried to exploit the situation to her benefit. Megan admitted that she viewed Dad's college fund for me as a danger to her financial stability. She didn't have direct access to it, but she had been gently encouraging Dad to consider utilizing the money for other things, such as home renovations or family holidays. Her strategy was to progressively drain the fund while protecting her own financial position. The bogus accusations against me were part of the plan. Megan attempted to downplay her role in it, claiming that she had felt uncomfortable around me at times, but admitting to exaggerating and distorting incidents to cast me in a negative light. Her purpose was to create space between Dad and me so that I wouldn't interfere with her plans. When Dad confronted Megan with all of this, she did not even have the decency to seem embarrassed. Instead, she tried to create a fresh falsehood, alleging that her ex had misled her and that she was also a victim. She cried and claimed she had made a mistake, but she still loved Dad. But the play broke apart when her ex, enraged at being thrown under the bus, revealed Dad text messages and emails confirming Megan's willing participation in the affair and manipulation. Some of the conversations contained details about their future intentions, such as how they would manage the divorce and share assets. The cruelty of it all was overwhelming. Megan had not only abused Dad's confidence through the affair, but she had also deliberately worked to destroy his relationship with me and ensure her own financial future at our expense. She'd exploited Dad's fears and desire to make his new marriage succeed, all while planning her exit strategy. Dad was a disaster as he told me everything. He kept apologizing, saying he knew he didn't deserve my forgiveness but hoped that one day I would be able to trust him again. He informed me that he was filing for divorce immediately and would do all in his ability to make things right. The divorce process has been a nightmare. Megan, recognizing her scheme had failed, is now attempting to collect as much as she can before the divorce is official. She claims she is entitled to half of everything, including the house and her father's retirement money. Dad filed for divorce as soon as he learned about Megan's infidelity, but the legal process takes time. We've gone through numerous preliminary hearings and failed mediation attempts. Our lawyer estimates that it will be another 6 months to a year before everything is finished. Fortunately, the evidence of her infidelity and deceptive behavior is working in Dad's favor. In our state, while infidelity does not immediately prevent a spouse from getting alimony, it is considered when spousal support is determined. The judge has been unimpressed by Meghan's assertions, especially considering the existence of those damaging text messages and emails. Meghan's pregnancy has complicated things. She's attempting to use it as leverage, implying that the baby could be Dad's after all, and that he should not abandon his child. However, considering the timing of her affair and Dad's proof, it's extremely unlikely that the baby is his. Dad's lawyer has urged him to obtain a paternity test once the baby is delivered, but Meghan can't use the pregnancy to her advantage right now. Meghan could not directly access my college fund, but she had been asking Dad to take money for other family expenses. Dad, eager to keep the peace and believing Meghan's falsehoods about me not worthy of the money, had agreed several times before. He pledged to replace every dime, even if it meant working 2 jobs. The most annoying element is Meghan's continued attempt to manipulate everyone around her. She informs Jack and Emma that Dad is attempting to steal her baby, that he is abusive and that they must testify against him in the divorce process. She's contacted family members, telling them about how she was misunderstood as a wife who made a mistake but deserves another opportunity. She even had the guts to contact me and cry, claiming that she never intended for things to escalate and that she was simply terrified and bewildered. She tried to persuade me that if I told Dad I forgave her, maybe we could all be a family again. The manipulation was so clear that it was almost funny, but it still left me sick to my stomach. Jack and Emma are stuck in the middle of a nightmare. They'd been spending more time with their dad recently, unaware that their parents were rekindling their love behind my father's back. When everything was revealed, they were devastated. They've contacted me and Dad, apologizing for not standing up for me and saying that Meghan had also supplied them false information about me. Meghan had informed them that I was jealous of them and attempting to undermine their relationship with Dad. She had convinced them that I was unstable and potentially aggressive, which is why they avoided me in the last 3 weeks before I went. Learning the truth has been devastating for them, and they are still trying to accept who their mother truly is. Dad has attempted to make apologies in every way he can think of. He has contacted my grandparents, thanking them for their support and apologizing for not listening sooner. He has volunteered to pay for therapy for me, understanding the emotional stress produced by this entire situation. He's even trying to make amends with my mother, admitting that his terrible decisions have placed an unfair burden on her. I'm still trying to digest everything. Part of me is relieved that the truth is out, that I've been vindicated, and that my father now believes me. But another part of me feels angry, mad that it took this level of betrayal for him to realize the truth, angry that I had to go through months of suffering and uncertainty because he couldn't trust his own kid over a lady he'd only known for a few years. For the time being, I've returned home and settled back into my old room. It is weird to come back here, knowing everything that has transpired. Dad and I are walking on eggshells around each other, unsure how to repair our connection. We're going to begin family therapy shortly, hoping to work through some of the hurt and mistrust that is built up. My college plans are back on track. Dad has pledged to do whatever it takes to get me into my ideal school, and I'm cautiously optimistic about the future. My grandparents have been extremely supportive, offering both emotional and financial assistance whenever needed. The legal battles are not done. Meghan is battling tooth and claw for every dime she can obtain, prolonging the divorce procedures with unrelenting demands and allegations. Her counsel has attempted to portray her as a caring wife and stepmother who made a single mistake, but proof of her deceptive behavior is jeopardizing her case. Dad's lawyer has been advocating for a fair yet strong settlement. Meghan's infidelity and intentional deception make it unlikely that she would receive the wealth she was hoping for. The judge seemed ready to award her merely the bare minimum necessary by law, which is a minor triumph in this disaster. There's also the issue of possible criminal charges. Meghan's activities, according to the lawyer, may be considered fraud due to the extent of financial manipulation. It's a complicated legal matter, and Dad is still debating whether he wants to pursue it or just finish the divorce and go on with our lives. Meghan's ex isn't getting off easily either. His involvement in the affair and subsequent manipulation has been revealed, and he is now facing legal consequences. His present wife, yes, he was married the entire time, has filed for divorce, and his firm is considering dismissing him as a result of the incident. It's a minor consolation, but it feels like some kind of justice. As I sit here writing this update, I am struck by how swiftly and completely one person's falsehoods can devastate numerous lives. Meghan walked away from the disaster she caused without looking back, leaving the rest of us to pick up the pieces. It will be a long road to recovery for all of us. I have no idea what the future holds, but for the first time in months I feel like I can breathe again. The truth is out, my name has been cleared and I have my father back. Even though our relationship is tenuous right now, it is more than I could have hoped for during those dark days when I felt I had lost everything. Thank you to everyone who has followed my tale and offered their support. Your warm thoughts and wisdom have been a lifeline through this ordeal. I'll publish another update if something big happens, but for now, I'm concentrating on recovering and moving forward. Wish us luck. After everything that's transpired, I believe we'll need it. Brother's mysterious ICU battle. From locked-in syndrome to a miraculous recovery, our long journey of hope. A week ago my brother was in his 30s and healthy. Today he's in the ICU with locked-in syndrome. December 15, 2023. The stroke doctor is concerned it may be locked-in syndrome, anyway. The original neurologist and attending physician basically made us believe there was no hope he was in there at all anymore. Yesterday the stroke team came in and assessed him, and that's where the new diagnosis, theory, came from. I don't know if I believe it or not. Is it good if he's still in there? Or is it cruel to even want that? We don't know if he'll ever get better. Very few people recover from LAS. He has an ongoing infection and inflammation in the brainstem. We don't want him to live in storage in a care home for 30 years, vented, unable to move or communicate, just existing instead of living. But how do you pull life support from someone who may be conscious, and can you even do so, legally? Or he may get a blood clot from being bedbound, or pneumonia, or the COVID the family just tested positive for. He had no health problems at all a week ago. The last few years have been the happiest of his life, it just doesn't feel real. Relevant comments. Comment 1, Hey OP. I have worked with many locked-in patients. It's a fate I would never wish on anyone. Diagnosis is hard because it's effectively a diagnosis of exclusion. If it's true, textbook locked in, the clearest supporting presentation is if the patient can constantly move their eyes up and down, not side to side, to command. The difficulty lies in that real people aren't textbooks. Plus, there are so many confounding factors that it can make it hard to say with certainty if a patient is truly locked in. All that being said, I've had multiple locked-in patients recover to near normal levels of function. I was shocked because previously locked in was a death sentence. Assuming he is young and healthy and his stroke is highly localized to the area that results in locked in, he may actually make some meaningful recovery with intensive therapy from locked-in accredited facilities. There are a few highly regarded facilities in the US. It is a long and arduous process, I'm talking a year minimum, but recovery is possible under the right circumstances. Edit. Also, ongoing infection is going to make it really difficult to determine exactly what's going on. You really need to be able to normalize everything else before you can say with certainty if someone is locked in. Comment 2. My aunt got pneumonia like 10 years ago and ended up in a coma. It was so severe. My mom went to the hospital and would just sit and talk to her, read her favorite books, put on her favorite shows, etc. Even though the doctors said she wouldn't be able to recognize anything. She later woke up and told my mom that she heard everything my mom did, and what my mom did gave her hope to keep going. So have hope OP, there's always hope. OP, thank you. I asked his friends if he'd been intending to read any books and ran out to pick one up yesterday so I could read it out loud to him. Unfortunately it's the Andromeda strain and I didn't realize the subject matter until buying it. Comment 3, you should read it and once it gets to the climax just stop. Then be like, hey motherfucker, you can finish this once you're out of the coma, I'm leaving it right here for you. And put it by his bed. But I also have a sick sense of humor sometimes, lol. But seriously, don't give up hope in him. Hope can do crazy things and people have gone through crazy ordeals only relying on hope. Be his hope if he needs it. What should I get for my brother's ICU nurses who are working over Christmas? December 24, 2023 title. My brother has been in the ICU for a few weeks. I appreciate all of the nurses so much, but wanted to get at least a little something for the nurses who are missing out on time with their families to care for mine. Me and the immediate family have COVID and aren't even able to go in person. Food delivery, sweets, chocolates, gift cards, Amazon, Starbucks? I want it to be something actually desirable, useful. Thank you. Relevant comments. Comment 1, my favorite gift as a nurse that a family brought in was a ton of practical stuff from Costco, with enough to go around. Think, lip balm, gum packs, protein bars, Fairlife protein drinks, then maybe a few goodies like chocolate or candy. I'm sorry your brother is in ICU, hope he makes a good recovery. Glad it's been a good experience with the staff. Comment 2, just speaking from a personal perspective, but a sincere thank you card is awesome. We post ones we get in our break room, and so when we go to eat a quick snack it's like a nice little words of affirmation boost reading them. Comment 3, if food, be sure to schedule 2 separate deliveries, one for day shift, typically 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., and one for night shift, typically 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. If you just deliver it once during the day, it will be gone or cold for the night shift. Update. A week ago my brother was in his 30s and healthy. Today he's in the ICU with locked-in syndrome. January 4th, 2024. Thank you everyone for your kind words on my last post. This has been harder than there is language to explain, so I won't try. We have a tentative diagnosis for the cause of the encephalitis now, after getting a test back from Mayo Clinic. Disseminated histoplasmosis with CNS involvement, a brain fungal infection, basically. Extremely rare for someone immunocompetent, very difficult to diagnose, and often misdiagnosed or underdiagnosed. Viral meningitis is the usual misdiagnosis, which is exactly what they'd been assuming. His presentation matches it perfectly, including the upper respiratory thing he was dealing with for weeks prior. He was started on IV antifungals the very day they got the test back. In the past few weeks we've lost the suspicion that he was locked in. He was in a full coma until 2 days ago, when he spontaneously opened his eyes. One neurologist, stroke specialist, said this was an encouraging sign. The general neurologist said it was nothing. So as usual we have no idea what's going on, what to expect, or what to hope for. Perhaps being foolishly hopeful, it does seem meaningful that there was never any improvement until a few days into the antifungal course. He's been treated for everything. And I mean everything else. I didn't know so many antibiotics even existed. He's going to be transferred to a major research hospital in Manhattan as soon as an ICU bed becomes available. We're just waiting for the call, and when it comes they'll stuff him in the helicopter, day or night. Because he's had strokes it's possible that nothing can ever be done and there will be no improvement from here, but I'll wait for the big brains in NYC to tell us that. Also, he was Joel from The Last of Us for Halloween. Method acting asshole. I have the watch he made for it, and if he ever recovers enough for me to do so, I'm gonna throw it at his head. Relevant comments. Comment 1. I had disseminated histoplasmosis, which took 5 months and multiple hospitalizations until my organ began failing. I transferred to another hospital's ICU, and was intubated for 10 days till they found what seemed to be yeast in my system, which indicated something fungal related. They hit me with anamorphic B and my fever came down, and ultimately they pulled me out of the ventilator. I don't know if there's much I can say to comfort you, but I know there's zero community here of those who have faced disseminated histoplasmosis. So if you have any questions, thoughts, etc., DM me, I am here for you. Comment 2. As a sibling who watched my sister battle an ultra-rare. No chance this could be it, blood disease from an ICU bed, I'm holding y'all in my heart. Thank you for taking the time to update a bunch of strangers on the internet. Question from a family member: what can we do to make your lives easier, and what do you wish families wouldn't do? February 8, 2024. I saw a discussion here recently about how going to the nurse's station is frustrating and needy. I had no idea this was the case and had considered it less obnoxious than hitting the call button. Using a button or bell to summon someone always gives me the ick and felt inappropriate for non-emergencies. So in a vein similar to that, what should we the family do to make your life easier? What do you wish more families would do? And similar to the above, what do you wish families would stop doing? Relevant comments. Comment 1. Don't ask for stuff for yourselves. I'm here to help your family member, not get you a blanket, coffee, water, a new pillow, a different chair etc. Also feel free to help your family member adjust their blanket, change the channel, adjust the heat AC, charge their phone etc. You don't have to call me for that. Comment 2. Clustering care is super helpful. Hitting the call light is great, and when you do it's nice to think of other things you might need. For example, hey, I think my dad needs help to use the bathroom. Also, since it's 11 could we order lunch and change his sheets while he's up? And while you're in here, could you tell us when his next pain meds are due? It's not always going to be possible. Humans are not robots. People can be frequently incontinent, need pain meds, etc. But it's so nice to be able to knock out several tasks at once instead of coming in and out multiple times in an hour. To be clear, please use your call light when you need it. Don't wait if your loved one is sitting in a mess or wailing in pain just because you don't want to inconvenience us. Comment 3. Try to appoint one person to get updates from the doctors and nurses that can update the rest of your family. When grandma has 5 daughters visiting and calling for updates, it can be overwhelming. Don't come up to the nurse's station instead of using the call light, then stand there and wait. Don't order DoorDash and expect staff to run around looking for it or bring it to the room right when it arrives. Update. I wanted to give an update to my 2 posts from earlier this year. I know a few folks reached out to me. I'm sorry for not responding, as I wasn't in a place at that time to really do so. But your kindness, and the fact that total strangers on the internet genuinely cared, was a balm for me when I really needed it. The final diagnosis is an extremely rare autoimmune disorder called acute disseminated encephalomyelitis. The trigger isn't clear, but it can really be caused by almost anything. He had an upper respiratory infection prior to all this, which is a common trigger. He slowly emerged from his coma over the course of a month or two, passing through different levels of consciousness and awareness, slowly, and was in fact locked in the early stages. He could only move his eyes to communicate. He received plasmapheresis treatments and started regaining mobility after that. It started with slightly moving his head side to side, slightly moving his lips, slightly twitching his fingers. Soon he was mouthing words and curling his toes. Adam apparently has a good prognosis for recovery, and the larger hospital we transferred to told us that there are no strokes in the brain, despite the initial hospital's assessment. The larger hospital has significantly more advanced MRI machines, which meant they could capture pictures the small regional hospital could not. This is something I wanted to bring up because I want to emphasize the importance of seeking that second opinion. Had we not transferred to the larger hospital, got the plasma treatment, got the new MRIs, we may very well have made different decisions regarding life support. I have no doubt other families in our position through the years have been forced to do just that. Do not give up until you have a diagnosis. As for how things are going now, he's been slowly regaining his mobility, and the neurologist told us we have no reason to believe he won't walk again. Cognitively he is 100%. He doesn't remember the first 6 weeks or so after waking up from the coma, but does remember everything before getting sick perfectly. He weaned off the ventilator in March. He transferred to an inpatient rehab facility and was there for several more months. He's now home and doing outpatient rehabilitation. He can move every body part, though he has muscle wasting and will need to continue intense physical therapy to get out of the wheelchair. Being in hospitals for nearly a year is not without its own complications: sepsis at least once, pneumonia multiple times, so much Miraculous and IV antibiotics, and a stage IV bedsore. But, considering where this started, it still feels like a miracle. 5 hospitals, 8 months. Please hold your family members close, and don't take for granted the amazing things your body does every day. It can all go haywire overnight. And to anyone who read these posts and cared for some strangers on the internet, thank you. Now to the next story, story 2. My brother asked for help after being cheated on again, but I refused because he abandoned me before. About 9 years ago, my brother's wife left him for another man. She was cheating on him all that time. My brother was devastated. They had married very young. I was always against it. I had my brother in my apartment for months. He had fallen into a severe depression, and I was the one who paid for his psychologist since he didn't have money and even lost his job because he didn't even want to move from the couch or bath. I even gave him a bath. I wasn't bothered by that. I did everything for my brother. She just left and blocked him from everywhere. She simply confessed to him that she'd been cheating on him for a year and that she was in love with that man. 4 years after that, when my brother was finally starting to feel better, she reappeared in everyone's life. The typical thing happened. She and her lover were no longer together. She had begun to receive psychological help and changed completely. She felt regretful, she was really sorry, etc. I told my brother all the time to cut off contact with her for the sake of his mental health. He didn't. I always had a bad feeling and I could smell the shit from afar. He started to justify her past actions all the time by saying that she changed. They were too young, she was having problems, etc., and he got angry when I told him that she is still a bitch. Shortly after that, they got back together and my brother cut off all contact with me because I didn't accept their relationship and he didn't want anyone to come between them. I told him to fuck off and we didn't talk anymore. Now my brother has reappeared at my house, after years without him wanting to talk to me, only to tell me that his wife cheated on him again, but this time they have children. In the past I would have let him in, hugged him and everything, but he has gone years without even inviting me to meet his children. He has not even spoken to me to congratulate me on my marriage or on my pregnancy. I even invited him to my wedding and he didn't come. I told him that at this moment I can't let him be in my house, which is actually true because I can't have that kind of stress. He told me that we are siblings and he needs me, but I told him that I needed him too, but he was never there and he cut me off for that woman. We had an argument and my husband ended up kicking him out because I was already crying. He's staying with our parents now and my mother just tells me it's not the time to hold a grudge against him and he needs me, but I can't forget how he didn't think twice before cutting off all contact with me for her. Relevant comments. Not understanding why people go back to cheaters like that. OOP, I don't understand it either, but the truth is that he had never gotten over that relationship. My brother went back to her because she basically sweetened his ear with things like that she was getting psychological help, that she was sorry for everything. She even came to tell me that she was really sorry for everything. Commenter, downvoted. You were way too involved in your brother's life. You bathed him because he was depressed. OOP. Way too involved. No, I was giving him the support he needed. Some people are so depressed that they even need help bathing. I'm a nurse, I've taken care of people in the same state or even people who needed help eating or brushing their teeth. There is no consensus bot on WIBTAH, but most comments were NTA update post, August 24, 2024, 1 week later. I have spoken to my mother because she kept trying to persuade me to talk to my brother. She came to see me since I cannot move too much. She basically told me that my brother is very sorry and I told her that then he should tell me that and not her. But my mother replied that my brother is too embarrassed about his actions. But I told her that I am not going to let her be any kind of mediator and my brother is old enough to speak for himself. I know he was sending her to insist that I talk back to him. My brother is an adult and can speak for himself. That said, 2 days ago my brother came to my house to talk about everything. He told me something that I always knew, which is that he never got over his ex-wife and he was always totally blind for her. He believed that all of us who were against him coming back to her were toxic and he should cut us out of his life because we were an obstacle that didn't believe people can change. So that's what he did with me. Block me from his life. He said that he feels ashamed of himself for having been so blind since she cheated on him again. I never told him I told you so, nor am I going to, 'cause he already knows that. There were many people worried about whether their children were his, but I can assure everyone that they are. They look identical to him and luckily she was maybe faithful at the time. Anyway, after talking he apologized to me and told me that he needs me, but I told him the same thing as that day. I needed him too and he was never there. I forgive him for everything, but that doesn't mean that I want to go back to everything being like before, because I don't want to put myself in that situation again. He didn't even tell me what he's going to do with his wife and I don't want the situation to repeat. I never did anything expecting something in return, but it did hurt me a lot that he turned his back on me without thinking twice and only came back when things got bad for him. I had invited him to my wedding. Maybe foolishly believing that he would come, but he didn't even do that. I even kept a seat for him thinking he was maybe coming late. And I feel really dumb for doing that. I told him I'm sorry, but I want things to continue as before since I got used to not having him in my life and I don't trust that he won't use me as a nurse and therapist anymore. At first he didn't understand it and said that we are siblings and we should be united, but when I told him that he forgot that for years, he shut up. So that's it. I simply told him that I prefer to continue without contact with him as before, and I have made it clear to my mother that I want to spend these months peacefully. Maybe some will call me cruel and say I should think about my family, but I'm not going to let him treat me like she treated him. Relevant comment. To a heavily downvoted commenter in a back and forth exchange with a lot of assumptions on the commenter's part, only included because I liked OOP's response. OOP, I'm going to tell you just one thing because I'm not interested in reading your comment. Adult people talk about things face to face and don't hide behind their mother. Now to the next story, story 3. Our strong 5-year relationship collapsed in a single night, leaving me completely heartbroken by the harsh truth. My partner, 25M, is my 26F rock and I'm his. Literally he tells me that all the time, including yesterday. We've been together for 5 years and have a truly wonderful relationship. Always talking, laughing, comfortable with one another. Able to communicate healthily even when we disagree. After surviving abuse as a child and struggling with unhealthy romantic relationships in the past, the fact that we love each other in a respectful, secure and profoundly healthy way is truly my biggest blessing, and I wake up every day so happy and grateful for him. He is an incredible man with so much drive, intelligence, kindness and gifts to give the world. About a year and a half ago it came up for the first time that we saw ourselves getting married one day. It was such a beautiful moment and it rocked my world to have been vulnerable, said those words, and had him say them too. Since then it's been something incredibly happy that I get to hold in my heart and look forward to. The subject has come up sporadically since then, but I haven't wanted to push it too far since we are young and it is very much an eventually thing. Both of our parents are divorced and he comes from money. He got a lot of strong advice growing up not to marry young and to protect his assets, to see it from a more financial view than I ever have thought of it. Nevertheless, the thought makes me happy and we often daydream about the future we'll build together. The little house in New Hampshire we hope to buy and the dogs and chickens we'll have. These are conversations he participates in and brings up on his own all the time. I want to be able to talk casually about the marriage aspect too, go to bed with a sleepy can't wait to marry you, or love of my life. But for some reason recently whenever the subject has come up he's clammed up and made it feel really serious. This culminated maybe 2 months ago with a really weird conversation in which I sensed he might not have processed what marriage really means in the way that I had, and that he wasn't ready to be talking about this in the way that I was or as much as he had let on. I told him I don't want to put a gun to his head, this is just something that makes me happy to think about and talk about, and I tell him everything. I said I love him for him. I'd wait as long as he needs, but that I firmly didn't want to bring up the subject again until he was comfortable discussing it. I wanted to relieve the pressure on him, and I haven't mentioned it since. Well, yesterday we spent a really lovely day getting lunch and hiking with my family. They live far away so we don't see them very often. My stepsister and her fiancé were there as well, and of course there was a little bit of light conversation about their upcoming wedding. My BF was his usual friendly, easygoing self. I noticed he seemed quiet on the way home and later that evening, so I asked if he was worried about work, but he just said he was tired from a long day traveling. I made him a drink, kissed him on the forehead like I always do, and promised we could do whatever he wanted to relax that night. Just did what I normally do when I can tell he's stressed, try to show empathy and take care of him. But then as I'm making dinner he comes over to me and drops this bomb. He came over to me crying and said spending time with an engaged couple and even barely talking about their wedding had sent him into a panic and he didn't know if he could ever see himself getting married. I was completely blindsided. I tried to parse what he was saying, but it was like my brain was stuck. Evidently he had been locking himself in his office at work all week crying about this. I kept asking him why he would say he wanted to marry me if he didn't. He said he was lying, basically. That he wanted to give me what he knew I wanted to make me happy. I could only just stare at him open-mouthed. I kept trying to pinpoint if he was saying to me, I don't think I'll be ready to get married for a long time. Or I don't think I'll ever be ready to get married, and I really don't think he knows himself. I don't think he has put any kind of mature thought into marriage at all. It was like talking to a scared child. He kept saying stuff about not knowing where his career will lead or if he'll have money. He has a great job, an outstanding network, and is definitely not poor. Neither of us are. And I was just like, we're a partnership. You wanted to be with me yesterday. You want to be with me today. Do you want to be with me tomorrow? Yes, he said. I said, well, that's all that matters. We have a life we love and we'll take on the future together when it comes. I'm devastated. He left for his mother's house and I don't know when he'll be home. I cannot take another sleeping pill or my heart will stop, but I can't sleep a wink. I literally spiked a 100-degree fever and spent all night sweating and freezing. I had no idea it was possible to be in so much pain it makes you physically sick. This person is the bedrock of my life. We have always had rock-solid confidence that we can trust each other, be vulnerable around each other and be our full authentic selves without inhibition or fear of judgment. We share everything together and we are best friends. He even said that over and over as he sobbed and told me he loved me and that he didn't want to get married. Hours ago I had the most beautiful and solid relationship in the world. Now I don't know if we're going to break up. I'm reeling. I feel like I've been stabbed in the back by my safe space. The earth fell out from under me and I don't even know what to think anymore. TLDR, my boyfriend of 5 years held in all his fears about marriage and commitment and they all exploded out at once, and now our amazing and healthy relationship could completely sink out of nowhere. Update. I just want to say thank you to every person who commented. I was in an absolute state while writing my original post, and truly thought 8 people would see it. I read every comment. The kind and empathetic advice I received gave me a little bit of hope and peace as I waited, and that was basically the only reason I was able to eat lunch those first 2 days. I want to thank all of you for that. The long and short of it is, he left me. I called him the next day asking when he would come home. He'd told me he needed a day to think, but he was talking like we were broken up. I asked him to at least tell me we're still together. He wouldn't, so yeah. He just torched it in pretty much an instant. I had been leaning a lot on the kind words I received from folks who reassured me that one fight does not need to derail everything we've built over the last 5 years. I took the perspective that the question of marriage was something that we'd need to discuss seriously and hopefully through therapy to arrive at what both of us want. I had no idea he would just upend the table with no warning, without ever expressing his feelings or giving us the chance to address it with even a single conversation. So many of the comments I received revolved around the question, is not marrying him a deal breaker for you? Would you be okay with simply a long-term relationship? I don't know. I would have to search my soul for that answer. But I didn't even get the chance. He made that choice for me. 5 beautiful years and he just fucking left. Needless to say, there were a million better ways to do this while honoring his fears and feelings while still showing me an ounce of respect as his partner and someone who loves him. This owed a conversation. And even if we still reached the same conclusion, I would understand. But this, it's not what I deserve. I did see him one night and we have been texting. He said all of this awful stuff about how he was just trying to tell me everything I wanted to hear and how I wouldn't like the person he really is underneath all of his people pleasing. He's got a lot of this don't talk about it, just run in his family. Including in his parents' relationships. My partner has always said he doesn't respect this kind of behavior and talked vehemently about how his values are different. Then he just did the same thing. Although when I wrote my original post I wanted nothing more than to continue living our happy day-to-day together, given this entire nightmare, space is the only thing that can do anything for either of us at this point. He has no idea what he's feeling or how to talk about it in a healthy way. My dad had the simplest take and yet said it best: he's immature. He needs to work on himself, and I hope he does. As for me, I'd be an idiot to still want to marry him knowing this is the kind of thing he's capable of. So we've got to break our lease. Apartment hunting while still reeling from this 180 flip of my life has been terrible. We moved to this city together, and pretty much every friend I have I met through him, so I'm really scared it will mean losing a lot of other people I love too. It's going to be expensive and miserable to live on my own, and I'm still grieving my sweet love and the life I thought we were going to have together. I gave 5 years of my life and so much of myself to being one half of that partnership. I never wanted to be on my own again and now I am. I still love him, but I can't wait around while he fixes himself, or pine foolishly hoping one day he'll wake up and be ready for me. I don't want to stand on my own 2 feet, but that's just what I have to do. My question now is, how do I move on? If when we do eventually talk, what can I even say? TLDR, he left and a lot of people were right. I didn't have the relationship I thought I had. My wife got bored with me and secretly called her ex to come and F her. This is how I uncovered everything. Hello everyone, I've been lurking on this topic for over a year but I can't keep reading and need some advice on my predicament. I would welcome any feedback. I'm 35 years old, and my 31-year-old wife stopped having any intimacy with me about 6 months ago and I'm not sure what to do. We have 2 boys, one is 3 years old and the other is 1.5. We are also in the process of building a house. I don't like watching the world burn, and I like to take action as soon as possible to address any difficulties. So I started a talk with my wife to figure out what transpired. I asked her, why did you stop speaking to me, hugging me, and kissing me? Why did you get concerned about the contact of my hand on your body? Why did you stop having any type of closeness with me? She was initially reluctant to speak. There was a difficult cover to breach, but she eventually opened up. What I discovered is that I'm not enough for her. She's doing everything alone. Can't rely on me, and feels like she's wearing the pants around the house. She told me she makes all of the decisions and handles the kids on her own. She even stated, "You would be better alone." She mentioned that I'm an introvert, but not a diehard one, among other things. It was upsetting to hear, but I accepted her words. I assured her I understood her suffering and promised to improve my behavior so she wouldn't have to worry about it. I love her so much that I'd rather agree than start a fight. However, I have my own thoughts, which occasionally prevent me from sleeping. A major red flag led me to this group. Her accusations are false, in my opinion, yet I honestly believe I meet the standards of a good husband. I work from home for about 8 to 9 hours per day, but then I care for my boys. I play with them, feed them, take the older one swimming, put them to bed and so on. I can also get up in the middle of the night if necessary. Aside from caring for the children, I help with housework. I do the dishes, grocery shopping, and some cleaning, but she likes to clean because I am not as efficient. I handle the car and other aspects of our new home. I do a lot to make her life simpler, and I know it's difficult with 2 little sons. The truth is, I'm not someone who is constantly proactive. Some folks can't sit on the couch for more than 5 minutes without thinking about what to do next, what to mend, what business to start, or what duties to complete. Her father is like this, but I am not. Once the kids are asleep, the work is completed, and the house is cleaned, I prefer to relax by watching a movie or playing video games. I am also not the sort to start my own business. I am skilled in my profession and prefer to be instructed what to do in order to do my tasks successfully. There are plenty of people like that, and I'm not ashamed of it. I don't pursue a glamorous career. I don't imagine having millions in my bank account. I'm simply a regular guy, a good-looking one, who wants to have a healthy, happy family while earning a reasonable living. I knew she was having problems with that, despite having been happily married for 4 years and together for 5 years prior. The conversation happened in December. After that, I began to work against my personality, which resulted in some proactive effort, such as additional groceries and house repairs. Basically, not sitting on my butt in the evenings. There's no rest. She liked it, but it didn't improve her attitude toward me, so I had to initiate a second conversation. Given how she treated me, I questioned her from the outset. Do you want to save the marriage? She said, I don't know. It was difficult to swallow, but in order to proceed, I asked her, do you want to go to marriage counseling? She said, I don't know. I continued. It's not a moment to not know if our kids may have parents living separately soon. After hearing that, she agreed, and I needed to get a therapist. She showed no interest in that. During our conversation, she revealed to me several sad truths such as, I married you simply to impress my parents and married sisters so that we might have a large happy family with beautiful children. I married you because I was fascinated rather than in love. I also learnt that she had a meeting with her colleague clergyman to discuss our marriage. Anyway, I found a fantastic therapist, and we're approaching our third session. We discovered that we have distinct love languages. I require touch, she needs work done. However, she hasn't touched me since we started counseling. No hugging. After the 2 sessions, I asked her whether she liked it and how she felt, and all she said was that she's uncomfortable sharing our personal information with an unknown stranger. When the therapist discovered we hadn't slept in the same room in 6 months, she was taken aback. My wife said that it is because she is sleeping with the children in the bed, and there is no room for me. The therapist responded that not allowing a husband in the bedroom sets a negative example for the children and that if there isn't enough room on the bed, go to IKEA and buy a single bed and install it next to the larger one. I did exactly that. I bought it, put it together, and am currently sleeping there. Funny thing is, I still feel like I'm sleeping alone. She's far to the left, the boys are in the center, and I'm far to the right. My wife's testimony has altered slightly since the beginning of the issue. She began to express her depression as a result of spending so much time at home with her children. She informed me she said all of those things because she was overly emotional, etc. I would never say anything like that to her under any circumstances, but I guess I had to trust her. She recently returned to work, and we hired a nanny. The only change in her conduct is that we began to communicate, but I am more than just her friend. I am also her spouse, and there is no intimacy. There are no signs that things will improve. She doesn't care about the next marriage counseling appointments, so I have to keep arranging them. She informed me she doesn't need sex and had only done it when I wanted it. I felt like an abuser. She was never into lovemaking. We had it once a week, which was okay with me. It could have happened more frequently, but it was fine. We've had sex twice this year, both out of pity. One was in early January to celebrate my birthday. Now it appears that I need to have a birthday to be laid. The other time was following a counseling session. She just lay there, covering her chest and waiting for me to finish, which made me want it less. That is not what this is meant to be about. When I bring it up, she simply replies, "That's who I am. If you don't like it, simply leave me." I do not know what to do. Please advise. Update 1. There was one instance where my wife attempted to phone her ex-boyfriend 4 times in a row at 10 p.m. She didn't talk to him, but she attempted to contact him. I know this because we used to have an app that saved our 2 phone numbers and allowed me to see incoming and outgoing calls for both. After that, I went crazy. Why does my wife contact her ex 4 times at 10 p.m.? I chose to check her texts on her laptop. I felt bad, but it was justified. We were married, had children, and she was acting strangely. After phoning him 4 times, she texted him, "I'm going to keep calling until you pick up and talk to me like a normal human being." When I asked her about it, she lied and said she wouldn't call him. So I showed her the app and her outgoing calls. She had nothing else to do except admit that she attempted to contact him. I inquired why, and she said that she was phoning back, knowing that she had also written to him after the call. I asked if she wrote to him after the call, and she responded no. Then I showed her the message she sent to him. She said that he had gotten drunk and called her, saying some nonsense. When she heard it, she ordered him to fuck off and hung up. Then she felt bad about it and tried calling him 4 times because he didn't answer. Finally, she wrote what she did and he did not respond. I'm not sure what to think about it. It happened about the time she stopped being intimate with me. Her perspective on the scenario is that it is neither strange nor awful, and that hiding it from me was not crucial to her. The point is, any communication with an ex is a terrible sign, and it is unacceptable to me. Is she cheating? We hadn't had any intimacy in 6 months and then the calls came. Update 2. Thanks to everybody for your insights. At first, I couldn't believe how many of you said she was cheating on me. It reminded me of science fiction, something I'd only see in movies. Maybe I thought my wife would never do something like this, but today everything changed. It became a fact. I feel stupid for being just another person in this circumstance, but I guess that's how life works. Now I know I promised to call her ex and speak with her family, but I decided to take a step back and keep it cool. Could you believe how simple that was? All I did was install a voice-activated recorder in our car, not a GPS. It was only there for 3 days. She took the car for work, then went to a workout, and then called him. Or perhaps he called her. I'm not sure who called who, but I heard everything. It was a video conversation on the phone. I learned everything I needed to know about sex and our respective lifestyles. They talked as my wife and I did when we first met 9 years ago. The same attraction, jokes, and so on. I haven't had this with her in a long time. They even discussed vacation plans. She wants to visit him in July. Wow, she offered him 2 years to move back to our country. I can't believe this. Now, after listening to an hour-long recording of this nonsense, I have some things to process. I need to meet with an attorney next week. All I wanted to say was thank you. You opened my eyes. If it hadn't been for you, I would never have purchased the blasted voice recorder. And to think, I felt horrible putting it in the car. My God. I will keep you updated, but for now, I need to relax and think about my children and what she has done. They started this in September of last year and it took me 2 months to detect changes in her behavior. I will be caring for my elderly father in another city for the next week, therefore she will be unable to work for that time. Instead, she'll use my home office. This also indicates she'll most likely be speaking with him in the office. Should I store the recorder in the office for the next week, or do I have enough? Update 3. It began in September of last year and I've been out of the picture for quite some time. Right now, she doesn't want to spend any time with me in the apartment we rent. She always has an excuse, something to do, visiting her parents, going to see her friends, etc. She even falls asleep or simply lies in bed after we put our children to bed, 1 and 3 years old. The recording says it all. She expresses her love for him, her desire to visit him, and to have sex with him. They talk extensively about his personal life. She told him she wanted to go on a trip with him and that she would marry him shortly. She even said she was leaving me. They talked about his preferred love-making position, so sure, they had sex. It is all there. The thing is, she has no idea that I know. Her entire family and circle of friends have no idea. They simply believe we are going through a brief crisis. She is one of 3 Catholic sisters and attends church every Sunday. We live in a tiny town with 20,000 inhabitants. We recently built a house, but it is not finished. I believe she will petition for divorce very soon. I can tell she is suffering with me in the apartment, and she can't take it longer. Her body language and absolute absence of discussion demonstrate this. She wants me to leave soon so that I can be gone for a while, and then, within 2 years, the AP, affair partner, will relocate to the tiny town to live with her and my 2 young sons in our home. In the recording, she says she gives him 2 years to return to our country. People will understand that she needs a father for her children and will not object. The AP is her first boyfriend. And they dated for 7 years before she married me. We have been together for 9 years. The AP lives abroad but makes frequent visits to our country. I refuse to be played that way. I now have an attorney, and we will meet with him soon to discuss this. I can basically ruin her reputation by giving people clips from the recording. Please provide me with any suggestions. What should I do if she served me papers? According to my attorney, my documents will require a month of preparation. I never imagined I would be dealing with a monster like this. Update 4. I visited with the attorney and got some important information. It turns out that destroying her universe would not be a wise decision. We have children, and I'll be co-parenting with her for the next 15 to 16 years. Another reason is that I respect her family and do not want them to serve as witnesses in the divorce. Also, I would not gain custody of the children because they are young and need to remain with their mother in the tiny town, which is an hour away from me in the capital city. I'd be an every other weekend father anyway. Finally, I would not be able to sell our house because the children require adequate living conditions and will not be able to find alternative housing. They are currently living on her father's farm, which is only temporary. As bad as it seems, this is the truth in Poland, Europe. Following our conversation, the attorney sent her the documents. They were scheduled to be delivered shortly after Easter. Easter is celebrated in Poland over 2 days, on Sunday and Monday. I faked it all at the table, and drinking helped a lot. Yesterday, Tuesday, I had a day off from work and was caring for my 1-year-old son. She went to work in the capital city, which is an hour away. In the interim, my brother assisted me in moving all of my belongings from the flat to his car. The postman delivered the divorce papers, which were actually an invitation to mediation, so that we could divide things civilly and divorce amicably. According to the article, she is in a relationship with this guy, which is why she is getting divorced. The evidence I have will be used as leverage when establishing child support, etc. When she entered the house, I informed her that I knew everything. I have incontrovertible documentation. I am profoundly hurt by it, and she should call my lawyer. Then I handed her the divorce papers and left to visit her folks. Of course, she began to question what and how I knew, and she denied everything. Her parents were shocked, but they believed me. I documented everything, as instructed by my counsel. It began with me asking if they thought I was a nice, caring husband and father. They agreed, and now she can't use them as witnesses against me in court. As I previously stated, they believed me and recognized that what she had done was horrific. She had devastated our lives as well as the lives of our children. I thanked them for their understanding and headed to the Capitol. Meanwhile, I called a buddy, who took care of delivering the news to her friends. 2 hours later, my brother-in-law called to tell me that she admitted to cheating on me with the affair partner, but she did not admit to having sex with him. He told me that everyone was on my side, and she had destroyed our family. He also informed me that her sister had visited my soon-to-be ex-wife and told her how nasty she is. But in the end, he claimed that all could be saved. He had cheated on his wife, she had forgiven him, and they were now happy. Then her father called and said that it was entirely her responsibility and that she had no idea what she had done. He informed me that the AP would never enter his home and that he would stop financially supporting my soon-to-be ex-wife. He even contacted the AP, but the individual did not answer. In the end, he expressed his belief that it could be salvaged. Finally, her other sister texted me, saying she fully supports me but feels it can be saved. I dislike that because I am certain it cannot be rescued. I'm concerned they'll cling to the fact that I don't have a love-making tape of them, and my reasoning will be insufficient to convince her to go. I have audio recordings of mom saying stuff like, "Make sure you'll last more than 3 seconds when I see you in Holland," and, "I wonder whether your dad's junk is the same as yours." You know what? I'll approach that woman and ask her how long your brother's crap is, then tell her how long yours is. She also used phrases like, "I love you. I am planning to leave my hubby. Please record yourself and give me the video. Your favorite position is crappy style with a straight back, and I'm showing you what your life with me will be like. I'm giving you 2 years to relocate back here." All of this, combined with her lack of emotion toward me during the last 7 months, is proof enough for me. Furthermore, soon after the incident, she informed me that she would never stop loving him. This is more than adequate proof for me. What are your thoughts? Anyway, as many of you have previously indicated, she is currently crawling back after her family confronted her with everything. She's sending me texts like, "I had no idea what I was doing. I can't picture life without you. I am deeply sorry for anything I have done. I'm waiting with the kids for your return." She also stated that she did not mean to inform me that she has always loved him. I'm not sure, they're making me feel like I rushed into the divorce since I don't have a real love-making tape. They do not know everything. All they know is that I have proof, but she won't acknowledge having sex with him. It's plausible because he's in Holland, but he may have seen her here. Update 5. Many of you informed me that now that the papers had been served, she would begin crawling back to save her face in front of the family and to get me back because she requires a lot of assistance with our 2 young boys. It happened, she began writing to me on Messenger, although not very frequently. All of the messages read the same: "I can't imagine my life without you. I love only you." She also sent images of our children and words stating, "We're waiting for you and love you very, very much." That is it. It has been 5 weeks and she hasn't contacted or visited me. She had numerous possibilities, including driving past my parents' house, where I currently live. Only Messenger texts appear infrequently. We also saw each other a few times while switching children, and she never tried to apologize or say anything, just a brief hi and bye. Her family began communicating with me much more regularly. Her father contacted me twice, her mother emailed me a dozen links to Christian pages about forgiveness, and one of her sisters texted me, apologizing and believing my wife has been possessed by an evil spirit. Her other sister explained how my wife had damaged our family and that she did not expect me to return to her. My brother-in-law even stopped over and took me out for a beer. He wasn't attempting to be persuasive, he was simply discussing what had happened and what might happen in the future if I didn't return. Sure, he wanted me to come back, but he wasn't forcing me. Essentially, all of these conversations were the same. "We can't believe she did what she did. We would like you to return to her, but we understand if you do not." However, the day came when I had made up my mind. My lawyer informed her lawyer that I had decided that I would not be able to forgive her in time and requested a divorce. My lawyer provided my terms, and we're currently waiting for her counsel to respond. While I waited for their response, her sister began criticizing me and telling me that I was going to wreck the marriage. She claimed unequivocally that it was my wife who started all of this by being selfish, but she is now very regretful, crying, and wishing she could turn back time. Now it is my turn to be selfish, and I intend to end the marriage by divorcing her. According to her, it's all on me now because I can rescind the divorce and return it for the children. She suggested I didn't even need to return to my wife, just raise my 2 sons. She told me how angry I am and how it will only become worse with time. She told me to just suck it up and keep living with my wife, framing this divorce as my revenge on her but stressing that it is also retribution on our children. I can't understand it. Others had warned me that this would happen, that the circumstances would shift and her family would turn against me, but it still shocked me. For a moment today I felt horrible, as if it was all my fault, that my wife treated me like garbage for more than half a year, that she chose to abandon me physically and emotionally, and that she wanted to leave. So yes, they had a strong influence on me. It's incredibly difficult, but I won't change my mind. The divorce will occur. It appears that they now have a narrative in which I am the guy who abandons the kids. I've been thinking about how to end this dispute by giving my terms for reconciliation, terms she's unlikely to accept. I don't love her, but I do it for the kids, whom I adore dearly. No marriage, only a relationship. Separate your finances. She leaves her hometown and moves with her children to the capital city where I live, GPS in the car till she stops driving in her old age, daily phone checks, all after I finish my 7 months of dates with random girls. I would also not be afraid to cheat during the relationship and never tell her. If she finds out, it makes no difference because there is no marriage. I do not care. What are your thoughts? It's only a notion. Nothing serious. I probably won't do it anyhow, but I don't know what else to do to keep the family from accusing me of abandoning the children. In Poland, Europe, tiny children like ours must be near their mother in the event of a divorce. I can't have them since she lives in a tiny town an hour distant from me, and the kids attend kindergarten and nursery there. We cannot divide custody 50-50ths. I'll be the every other weekend dad, with full access anytime I choose. It's sad and unpleasant, but that's how it is. Update 6. It's been 2 months since I confronted her, gave her divorce papers, and relocated to the capital city, an hour away from the little hamlet where we used to live together. I currently live with my parents and sleep on the couch in their living room. The dining table has been converted into a workspace/entertainment area, and my clothes are hung on every chair around. I work from home for 8 hours and then normally help my elderly parents, who are 88 and 71 years old, with household duties. I do their grocery and drive them to doctor's appointments. Apart from that, I go to the gym or the movies to get away from bad thoughts about what happened. I visit my children every weekend. She drops them off, and I take them back. The weekends are fantastic, and I find myself actually happy when I'm with them. I took a paternity test, and the boys are mine, so there is no confusion there. The situation with the divorce terms is currently unknown. It's difficult to predict what will happen because I live with my parents, and as a father of 2 and a mature man, I don't have anywhere else to live. I want a large sum of money from my wife and she is taking over the mortgage for the house. She consented to the mortgage takeover but only offered 1/3 of the amount I requested, citing her contribution to the house's construction. The thing is, I did not cause this circumstance. I'm not guilty, and I need a place to live. 1/3 of the sum I want will not help me buy a flat, so the discussion between our attorneys continues. She's offering me such a low price because she wants to keep the house. However, the last time we spoke, I learnt that she may be forced to sell it. This is what she should have done since the beginning. She'll be unable to pay both the mortgage and me. We'll see how it goes. Other financial issues, such as child support, are also up for debate. She wants too much, and it must be agreed upon. She also argues that I should be the one to pick up the children from the little town and drive them home. By the end of the weekend, there will have been a lot of fuel and time spent. It should be her dropping them off and me driving them home. As you can see, she is responsible for everything, but she is also willing to argue about the conditions of the divorce. Her sister invited me to attend her daughter's communion last Sunday. I went to spend more time with my boys. Every family member is aware that my decision is definite, therefore they did not even attempt to talk to me about it. I basically took care of my boys while everyone else drank and ate at the table following the ceremony. However, at one point my wife questioned whether my decision was completely final. I glanced at her and said as gently as I could, Yes, it is final, and nothing will change it. I'm here now for my guys, to spend as much time with them as possible. However, she went on to express her genuine shame and regret for what she had done. She informed me she stopped her relationship with the AP by going to an exorcist, telling him everything about the affair, and then leaving it in God's hands. To that, I said that I don't care about her priest, and if there's anyone she should be telling everything to, it's me. At that point, it was just ludicrous, but I said, okay, if you're truly sorry, I'm here to give you one last chance to tell me the whole truth. Tell me how often you had sex with him. She said that she didn't. Then I asked her, do you remember that party you held with your work pals in November? Why did you rent a flat for the night, Airbnb, instead of staying at one of your friends' apartments? After hearing it, she went paralyzed and couldn't say anything except, why do you need to keep torturing yourself with it? I stated that if she was truly sorry, she would stop lying 2 months after I left her. This was just one example. I told her having sex over video chat is the same, and I knew she did it with him. She could not remember how many times she had done it with the AP. After that, I asked her, how do you picture getting back together? You start a conversation with me, then lie the next second. Do you realize I'll be checking your phone every day? What are your thoughts about that? She responded, that would not be trust. It would simply be treating me as rubbish. Then our son intervened, and the conversation was nearing its end. I ended with, remember, you didn't just cheat on me. You also cheated on our 2 adorable, wonderful boys. It ruined her. She began shrieking that this was the last time I told her something like that in front of our children. It's interesting because her sister has told me that my wife is hurting and crying every day as a result of all of this. It's a true two-faced woman, sobbing in front of her family while lying to me. She even stated that if she wished, she would join the AP and her family. I couldn't do anything about it, as if I should be grateful that she broke up with him and is now in control of not being with him. So come on. I think I'm simply venting at this point and keeping you updated. Thank you all for your support. I'll be strong and end this mess one day. I believe my boys will want psychological assistance if things do not turn out nicely. The older one has been scared lately, but I will always be there for them. Update 7. Our attorneys finally reached a deal, and the divorce will take place shortly. She has taken over the unfinished house and is now solely responsible for the mortgage. The house is for the kids, and I don't want anyone to tell me later that I sold it as part of my revenge on her. Furthermore, I don't want to live in her small hamlet, which is an hour away from the capital city where I am currently. However, I am receiving what I put into it, and that amount is not awful at all. The child support amount is reasonable, and we agreed that she will drop the kids off to my residence in the capital city every other weekend. I'll just need to drive them back. Now, I see my children virtually every weekend, but it's not enough for me. It causes me so much anguish that I can't take it sometimes. I simply cannot allow 1- and 3-year-old boys to grow up without a father because of an unruly mother. I only wish I could have them, but it's not feasible due to Polish laws. I'll have to start driving there in the middle of the week or something to get by. As for her, she keeps texting me that she loves me, wishes she could go back in time, and is suffering as a result of her actions each day. She softened to the point that she told me that she no longer considers checking her phone to be treating her as garbage. She agreed and said I could do it all the time. She also said we may transfer from the tiny village to the main metropolis. She pledged to tell me everything about the affair, every detail, if I would accept her back. She came to see my parents and apologized. Something must have changed, or someone must have informed her of something. She's now eager to do anything and even displaying some guilt. The last time she messaged me, she said, "Thank you for not selling the house and ending the relationship amicably. Accepting the divorce is synonymous with agreeing to your terms. I'll have to agree in court, but let me assure you that it won't be true. I do not want this divorce, and I adore you. I know you don't believe it and I understand, but I want you to know that I hope to have the opportunity to prove my love to you someday. I adore you and am sorry for everything. There are no words to explain how much I regret everything. Things like those sway me and hinder the healing process. I'd be lying if I said her remarks didn't affect me. The idea of my boys growing up in the capital city rather than the tiny town is appealing. I know she struggles with being alone with 2 tiny boys, but she cheated and wrecked everything. I expected it to grow better with time, but the wound healed quite slowly. I shall remain the course. I'll end this. I'll update one day, maybe when I'm finally happy. What are your thoughts? Do you believe my wife is sincerely sorry? She only agreed to tell me about her infidelity after I stated I might come back, not right away. She didn't offer to let me check her phone immediately. She did not immediately volunteer to go to the metropolis from the tiny village. It took 3 months for her to demonstrate contrition. When she apologizes, she doesn't even contact or visit me. She does it over Messenger. Her entire family has now sided with her. Her mother calls me a narcissist, and her sister claims that I only want to profit from the divorce and leave a lady with 2 young sons. I paid a brief visit to my children yesterday, and she invited me to spend the night. Naturally, I left. I'd appreciate any insight. Update 8. D-Day was April 7th, and here's how I feel after nearly half a year. In such complex scenarios, the same questions must be answered on a daily basis. In my case, the question is if I still love her. Could I go back to her solely for the children? Do I want to return to her little village to complete building the house? Would I be okay with myself in 5 to 10 years knowing what she had done? The answer to all of the inquiries is a resounding negative at this point. That is it. Yes, I adore my children and wish I could spend every day with them, but I cannot. I want to love her, but I can't. Even though she wants me back. I wish I could have that family back, but I cannot. I want to forget everything, but I can't. I even gave her a second chance, which included moving to my city with the kids to begin a new life. She didn't even agree, telling me that she has her family's assistance in the little town and will not sell the house since she wants our children to have something in the future. When I informed her that family isn't the silly building, but a mother, father, and children, she just shut up. This is when I realized there is no longer a us. There is no mutual agreement or middle ground in this. I mentioned that I would not continue living in the tiny town because that is where the affair began. He observed her driving down the street and phoned her. I went on to say that I will not finish building a house 1 mile away from her AP's family home, and that I will not spend another day of my life worrying about meeting him someday. He lives abroad but pays 2 to 3 visits to his family each year. The conversation then ended. I despise the little town. She does not wish to live in the capital, that is it. Here's an example of how she approaches things. We agreed that I would take the money I put into the house and she would keep the building for the children. She now has an issue with this because there is a clause in the agreement that specifies she cannot sell the house until the children reach 18, adults in Poland. Otherwise, she will have to divide the money she would receive from selling the house evenly between herself and me. She believes this is unjust because she intends to build the house with her own money, and if it is sold, I would receive half of the proceeds from a far more expensive finished house. When I asked her why she would consider selling it, she explained that she cannot anticipate what her life will be like. I can't trust her at this point, so I'm considering just selling the building. I can't bear the thought of selling the house I bought for my children. Update 9. She sent me a message today asking for a response to her question. I'm asking you online because if I were to do it in person, we'd just shout at each other. You've told me who I am and what I've done, and you don't want to talk about it anymore. After all of this, do you want to forgive me, put the past behind you and start over with your family, or do you already know you don't and will never be able to forgive me, and you'll never return to us? Please think about it and let me know if you want our marriage back. What does this mean? I don't think she's in a position to demand that I be so detailed right now. I believe there is another person involved, and she wants to discuss the problem with me. I replied, I'm worth more than a messenger conversation, and we'll talk soon. I chatted to her. I laid forth my only 2 conditions for this marriage to last. Move to the capital city and cut all links with the AP and his family. The second is obvious to her, but the first is an insurmountable impediment. She apologizes for her actions, but she refuses to relocate to Warsaw because we will never be able to afford a magnificent large house there, and even tiny apartments are prohibitively expensive to rent. She claims that our children have it easy in the tiny town. She just pays the bills for the flat she presently resides in because it is her father's property. In Warsaw, she would have to spend 4 to 5 times more for a smaller flat, bills and rent. She also has enough friends and family to visit with the kids after work. That is all true. I see the children are pleased, and it is handy for her. She claimed if we moved, only I would be thrilled about it. It would boost my ego. It's just a bad scenario since she's right. Her sister owns the small town's kindergarten, which we pay nearly nothing for. She simply put me in an impossible scenario to solve. Situation: I hold my ground. I will not live in the little town, but it does not make sense for them to relocate. In this scenario, we agreed that I would simply continue to visit and spend as much time as possible with the children. I will continue to take them to Warsaw every other weekend. She informed me she will not date anyone else and will only wait for me, and that I will see for myself in the future, that she will remain single. I find it difficult to believe, but I don't really care. Maybe it's good since the kids will just have me as a father figure, rather than some random guy. During our chat, she said several things that demonstrated that she is not a remorseful person. When I asked why she hadn't phoned me once during our separation and had just texted me, she stated she didn't have time with 2 kids running around the house. She stated that she will never discuss the affair again and will not provide me with any other information if I inquire. She is done with it and will not discuss anything else with me because I informed her family some information she did not want me to share with them. She informed me that the AP had been writing to her for many years and that she had always rejected him, but when he wrote last year, she chose to start an affair with him due to my passive approach. I immediately told her what she said was very horrible, and she rolled her eyes and said, "You're only thinking about yourself. You are the only poor guy in this." Update 10. I've learned to live alone with little time with my children, and now I want to date again. Actually, I began using dating apps some time ago. I get a good number of matches, and arranging up a date with a nice woman is no problem. In general, I had 2 to 3 short-term relationships that had to terminate since I was always busy with the kids when they wanted to meet. Every other weekend is completely off, although I wish they were longer. I always lied about having a meeting or whatever, and they saw it as a lack of interest on my part. The trouble is, how can I navigate this? For the time being, I don't tell new girls that I'm almost divorced with 2 children. I discovered that the only way for the second or third date to occur is to avoid exposing this too soon. Is there a solution to this? Is there any chance a girl would stick with me if I gave her the truth from the start? Has anyone experienced a similar situation? I don't necessarily want to be in a serious relationship right now, but I hope to be in one in the future. I yelled at my wife that having a child with her was the biggest mistake of my life and that she had made me miserable. Now, I regret my words. Repost as my last post got removed. I have been with my wife for 4 years. I have a 5-year-old from a previous relationship. My 5-year-old, Leah, is from my first long-term relationship during college. We split shortly after her birth, as my then partner admitted to being unfaithful and not being ready to start a family. My daughter loves my wife. They are inseparable. My ex does not have much to do with my daughter or myself except cause the occasional drama. She did not want any custody or visitation time, so my wife is her mother for all intents and purposes. My wife is almost 8 months pregnant. She has shut me out of the entire pregnancy but refuses to admit anything is wrong. I feel completely ignored and hurt. When we first learned she was pregnant, she told me while I was making breakfast. Of course I was elated. However, since it was an unplanned pregnancy, I asked how she was feeling at first. She began smiling and crying about how excited she was. I picked her up, gave her a million kisses, and told her I was so excited to have a baby too and what a wonderful mother she would be. All good, right? She went all out to announce it to everyone else. Balloons and boxes, t-shirts and best big sister mugs. I assumed the casual announcement with me was because she wanted my feelings on growing our family before celebrating. However, when her sister asked about how I liked my box, my wife quickly said, "He didn't get one, this isn't his first rodeo." It was like pulling teeth to get her to let me go to the ultrasound appointments. She didn't want me to miss work, didn't want to interrupt Leah's routine, excuse after excuse. When it came to listening to the heartbeat, my wife instantly started crying happy tears. The tech was telling her how strong the heartbeat was, how precious our little one was, etc. I was feeling a bit emotional and cleared my throat to prevent crying. The tech said, "Aw Dad, isn't that sound beautiful?" My wife immediately said, "This isn't his first child. It's not that special for him." I immediately said this is one of the most important moments of my life. I can't think of anything more special. The atmosphere was clearly awkward after. Another thing that bothered me, I heard Leah and my wife's mom laughing in the living area. I was in the kitchen making dinner. When I walked in and asked what the fuss was about, Leah was touching my wife's stomach and was laughing with excitement that the baby was moving and it would be so cute. My wife let my daughter and Mill feel the baby move before me. I was hurt but simply said how happy I was. Later that night, my wife was poking her belly and laughing. I asked her to feel as well and she said, "You felt Leah move as a baby. What can be better than that? She was the cutest baby ever." She has felt pretty poorly throughout her pregnancy, but refuses to let me help her. If I bring her a snack and drink, she offers it to our daughter. If I try to rub her feet or legs, she asks me to play with our daughter so she doesn't feel like she is being replaced or ignored. I simply do not ignore my daughter. We have bonding time. I'm an active parent but I want to love my wife. She can hardly eat but when I asked her what I can prepare for her, it's whatever Leah wants. We went to the zoo with Leah, and my wife started feeling bad. She had cramps and was considering going to the hospital, severe nausea and dizziness. I carried her to a bench nearby and she began to cry, saying she can't even stand up. I told her, let me call an ambulance or I'll carry you to the car and drive you. She said she didn't want to ruin Leah's trip and we didn't even make it to the aviary, Leah's favorite part. I said I wasn't leaving when she asked me to continue to go through the zoo with Leah. We sat for a while until her dad showed up. She didn't even tell me he was coming, and he took her to the doctor. I was shocked, and followed them with Leah. When we arrived, Leah was upset about missing the aviary and pouting. At that point, the health of my wife and unborn child were my concern. I really didn't care that Leah was upset. My wife was irate that I made Leah miss out. Another example, we were watching Leah play in a local kids' sport. I asked her, do you think our kid will be athletic, artistic, enjoy science or math? She said, this is Leah's moment, we shouldn't make it about someone who isn't even here. Leah was on the field, we were sitting in the stands. We had both waved to her, held up a sign for her, everything. I just wanted to talk about our baby. When her bump was really showing, she would always show it off to anyone who wanted to look. Her family, friends, siblings, etc. Do you want to see my bump? I'm huge, so excited, I can't believe it's only X more weeks. They all touch her bump, talk to it, etc. Her parents come and read or tell back in the day stories. They go to the beach? 1,000 bump pictures posted on her friends' social media accounts, so ready to be an honorary auntie. Her sister wife puts the B in bump and beautiful. If we go out together, she wears the loosest clothes so I don't see it. I'll even see her pull her shirt down when she sees me come into the room. She sat on me the other day after being playful in bed. Her bump was right in my face. I ran my hands up it and said, you are the most beautiful woman I've ever seen, you already are a great mom to Leah. I can't wait to see you as our family grows. This was one of the first times I was really able to feel her bump, so I rested my hand there and said, I love you so much already, I'm so excited to meet you. I hope you have your mom's eyes. She moved off of me and said, I know ex-partner had a bigger bump than me. I bet it was fun seeing Leah move all the time. You don't have to act like you care, I know you've done this before. I said I don't think about it that way. Leah is special, but this is a completely new and different special because it was with her and our baby was someone completely new and special. She began to leave the room and I could see her shoulders shake from crying. I am 100% positive she is not cheating, nor has she ever. I just can't wrap my head around why she doesn't want me to be happy about this. The rest of the time is completely normal as long as I don't mention the baby. She is affectionate, initiates intimacy, brags about what a good husband I am and how great I've made this pregnancy. We plan for our future, have date nights, everything else. Unfortunately, we had a fight where I snapped. I had a break between clients at work, so I went to a local baby store and got a lot of things she had planned for the baby and nursery on her Pinterest board. I came home and surprised her with flowers, a prenatal massage certificate, and her favorite food, as well as the baby items. She seemed very grateful, but when I came home, editor's note, OOP meant when he got home after going back to work again, the items were no longer there. She said she returned it to buy Leah stuff, as she was going to feel left out. I lost it, I cried for the first time in our marriage and yelled that having a child with her was the worst mistake I've ever made, that at least my deadbeat ex at least gave me the chance to know my unborn child. That I didn't care about the baby because she wouldn't even let me bond with it, I do care, have since she told me. That I hope she was as miserable as she made me and that she better be prepared for a custody dispute, she is a SAHM for Leah. She simply said, I know you don't care about the baby, but I'll die before you take my baby from me. What? I have begged her to let me interact with her, our baby. I asked her if her therapist had any insight on why she was being like this. She said no, that she isn't doing anything. I told her what I said above and she said I had those experiences already so it shouldn't matter. I asked her if the baby was mine. I know it is, I was just being mean. She threw her phone at me and said yes, go through it. I'll do a paternity test, whatever you need. I just called her parents and asked them to go to our house as we were having a disagreement and went to a hotel. I do not want to stress her or our unborn child, and I really want to repair this but I truly don't know how. I'm staying at an Airbnb for now until we can figure this out, but I truly don't know what to do. I miss her like crazy, and I can't even begin to understand why she wants to behave this way. I have apologized for what I said, but I can't take back what I said and I worry about when our baby will be born if she will even want to be a family with me, or let me have anything to do with our baby. I spoke with a mutual friend who says she is very distraught and says she can't be a single mom, loves me, But her actions prove the opposite time and time again even when I beg for change. Relevant comments. Why did you say those things? OP, downvoted. I said those things because I wanted to hurt her like she has been hurting me. It's as simple as that. I regret it. I have apologized. She has told me time and time again you shouldn't care, and I told her whatever I thought I could to hurt her. It was childish and immature of me, and it was a knee-jerk reaction. I hadn't planned on saying any of that. Commenter. Yeah, I can understand why you're angry. Has she explained why she has been saying those things? Resentment is a weird thing. She may not have even realized she had that until she became pregnant, but I do think that if that was something she'd been feeling, that it's something she should have spoken to either you or your therapist about. OP. Nothing. I've begged her to talk to me about it. I've told her we can go to counseling together, and guess what her response was? She cried and asked if I was unhappy in our marriage. I said no, I want to be more involved with you in this pregnancy. You've left me in the dark. I asked if she was unhappy. Did she want a divorce? Decide she doesn't want this baby? More tears, seemed genuinely hurt. I would even think that. Makes no sense in my mind. Apparently I should just stand on the sidelines. Commenter. Is it possible she's resentful of your 5-year-old? What's your relationship with Leah's mother like? OP. I truly don't think she is resentful. She adores my 5-year-old and I think she is probably the preferred parent. She takes her to the park, museums, mommy and me painting. Shows up to school events, muffins with mom etc. without fail, takes care of her when she's sick, plans our vacations out around my 5-year-old's interests. Her cousin had said something about not bringing her stepdaughter before, and my wife completely freaked and said that we don't use titles around here that make us feel like we aren't one family. She is my daughter and nothing less and will not be excluded, type thing. When she was first pregnant we took a short trip to see some of her family and she cried every day about missing Leah. She is in therapy and has been since we met for anxiety and depression, but it is clearly no help. I have brought up prenatal depression at her doctor's appointment but she really doesn't match as she is elated unless I specifically bring up the baby. Downvoted comment about seeing an attorney because he probably won't be allowed at the birth and they should just get divorced. It's definitely a fear in the back of my mind. I know Leah will be devastated. My wife already mentioned wanting her mom in the delivery room since I've already seen my kid being born, that it would only serve to embarrass her if I'm in the room this time. Commenter, you two need couples therapy immediately. You should have started it after her first or second comment. You've known for months things weren't right. Also, call her OB and explain what's going on. Ask them to make a record of her shift in behavior and stress that she's never done anything like this before getting pregnant. OP. I stupidly attributed it to hormones and other issues that come with pregnancy. She was sick for most of her pregnancy and for a lot of it actually lost weight, was constantly hungry but couldn't eat and became very body conscious. She is doing much better now and is a healthy weight and I genuinely thought it would get better. It's much easier to see in hindsight that the first few comments were deeper than that. Commenter, why the fuck did you say all that shit? She was acting really off, for sure, but you really fucked up. That's some awful, very possibly unforgivable stuff you just said. And you seemed like such a decent guy. OP, I am an idiot. I did fuck up, and I have apologized, not that it means much to her at this point. I said whatever I could say to hurt her. It was months of resentment building up. Months of begging for her to tell me what's going on, to let me in, to let me think of baby names with her. I was and I still am hurt. I hope it can be repaired, as I would like to be there for her and be a full-time father to my child. It breaks my heart to think of splitting custody time. OP clarifies his relationship with Leah and the aviary event. OP, I absolutely did not care that we did not see the aviary. We go to the zoo regularly and I had promised we would go back. When your pregnant wife is so ill she begins crying that her legs don't work and she can't walk and begins saying she thinks she might die due to such strong abdominal cramps, you're not concerned with missing the aviary. I did not tell my child I did not care. I told my wife in the hospital that her and our unborn child's health became before birds and that Leah can pout and be mad until we were certain she and our baby were okay. We do everything for Leah. Leah and I have bonding time both with and without my wife. Together we enjoy fishing, going to the arcade, and playing Barbies. My daughter is confident in our relationship. Just the other day my dad said he didn't want to play horses with her anymore and she of course said, "Fine, I know Dad will always play with me." I absolutely have not and never will neglect or abuse my child. This is such a far reach because I was concerned more about my wife than my daughter going to an aviary. To another commenter, she is 5, and is very smart. She knows that the hospital and ambulance are things people need when they are very sick. She completely understood my wife felt bad, even said I needed to get her tummy medicine so we could keep going. I didn't say, "We are leaving," cry about it. I did tell her we were following Mom and Grandpa to the DR because Mom was feeling very bad, and that we can come back another day, and said when Mom feels better we will get her an ice cream since she didn't get to see the birds. She pouted, all kids do. Did she see that I was more concerned with my wife? Yes. She even commented that Grandpa seemed upset. We live in a hot and humid climate, and my wife went from red and using a fan to pale white and saying she was cold. It was scary for me. When you arrive at the hospital and want updates. Are you okay? Is the baby okay? And your wife is miffed that you didn't take your child to an aviary, and that's all she wants to talk about is that she is pouting. It hurts. Commenter. And for someone who is a self-proclaimed good husband, why has he not addressed this with his wife before? If she is acting so out of character, and showing odd behaviors, why has he not talked to her about it? Every in-tune partner would be scrambling to get to the bottom of this after a few remarks. He just let that shit glide. OP. You don't think I've talked to her about this? I am shut down every time. I exploded after begging her to talk to me for the 100th time. This was not out of nowhere. I have literally gotten on my knees in front of her and asked why she is doing this. If there is a reason, what does her therapist say? Do you want to go to therapy together? And she says she doesn't know what I'm talking about. It is the most frustrating, infuriating thing. It's so hard to watch something so special pass by you and pretend it's not happening. I regret what I said and don't expect sympathy. But my explosion was not from lack of trying update. It's been about a month since I posted. This is a bit long because so many kind Redditors reached out and gave me advice and shared their experiences and asked for an update. After I posted and stewed for a little while, and had a couple of drinks, I called my Fiel. He and my wife are very close, and I respect his opinion. He has been married for a very long time, and seems to have a happy marriage and has good relationships all around with his family. I didn't specify what issues we were having, but he was over at my house while I was staying in an Airbnb, so it was no secret we were having problems. He has more of a traditional marriage, and at some point asked what I had to lose by putting pressure on her to talk. I said I feared I would push her away more, and he pretty much told me that I was living in a separate house than my pregnant wife, freaking out about a potential divorce. What did I have to lose? He advised me to be a man, and come back to my house and lay it on the line. I told him I'd be coming over the next day. They asked if they could take Leah to buy some sparklers for the upcoming holiday and spend the night at their house. I agreed, and when I went to my house the next day I came in with flowers and stuff to make dinner. My wife asked what I was doing there, to which I replied I lived there and would like to sit down and talk. I gave a long apology for my actions and words. When I finished, I said it was her turn to tell me what was going on. She tried to claim nothing, that everything was okay. After a while, I said my heart is broken, that we have been through some tough things together, fought for each other, and now you sit here and lie to my face. We both sat there and she cried for about 30 minutes until eventually she said she felt like our relationship would end if she was honest. I said I would hear her out, no matter what. She admitted it was hard that this would be her first kid and not mine. She didn't think it would bother her, and it didn't until she was pregnant, and that she laid in bed at night thinking if my ex would have wanted to raise Leah we would still be a family together and she wouldn't matter. She expressed that seeing me emotional about our baby, or wanting to touch her bump, or treat her made her think of me and my ex and how I had already did all of the things she was excited to do with me. Near the beginning of her pregnancy, she had told a close friend that she couldn't wait to have a baby with her soulmate, and her friend replied that she didn't think soulmates had other children or baby mamas, that it was two people meant only for each other. She was very upset and asked if I thought we were soulmates like she did. She described herself and our unborn child as my sloppy seconds family, that no one grew up dreaming of having kids by multiple different people. That she was just the substitute when the family I wanted didn't work out. She also shared she had found some old images of my ex on social media and could not stop comparing her pregnant body. She feared the baby wouldn't be an equal to Leah in my eyes. It worried her when I would ask what she thought the baby would be like, that what if the baby was disabled, or didn't like to do the things we enjoyed as a family, or the baby and Elle didn't like each other. She said at one point she found herself wishing I had never had Leah, so she wouldn't have to worry as much. And that is when she knew she had to really put in the extra effort to maintain a relationship with Leah. She feared that between work and Leah, I wouldn't have time and wouldn't bond with the baby like in the articles she read online where fathers didn't bond with their children until they were able to do things with the family. When I did try and bond with the baby, she worried the baby wouldn't live up to Leah. I have never been shy about saying how much being a father means to me and how raising Leah has been the highlight of my life, along with marrying my wife and now having our child together. She said it was initially what made her confident in marrying me and excited to have a big family with me. But now constantly wondered if her pregnancy and this baby would be a highlight or a burden for me, because the stress is the same but the newness wasn't. And then what if a newborn and then toddler wouldn't be as interesting to me as Leah, who is capable of doing activities? She showed me a million articles of different men explaining they didn't bond with their children until 4+ years old. She also showed me videos where people say things they did with their first kid, and then get more relaxed as they have more children. She said it freaked her out because it was clear people stopped caring the more children they had. She said that there were times she felt she was ruining our family and coming between me and Leah. For example, at the zoo she said she cried on the way to the hospital. She was afraid Leah would hate her and resent the baby for cutting our zoo time short, and that I would be upset that I was spending my time off work at the hospital instead of doing the activities we planned with Leah. While I work, Leah and my wife spend a lot of time out of the house, library, local parks, etc. One of their favorite activities is biking together, and we bike together on weekends as well. We have lots of local trails, but due to her pregnancy she has not been able to. We've been doing more indoor activities. My wife said that when I'm at work, Leah kept saying she hated her because she didn't get to go on her new bike as often anymore. I said I would discuss it with her, because that is unacceptable. My wife asked me not to since there would be so many changes soon for Leah, and it hurt her because she missed biking together as well. A couple of months ago, my wife asked me and Leah if we wanted to read stories together. Leah chose the first story I read and my wife chose the second, her favorite childhood story, for me to read to the baby and Leah, since it helps promote brain activity and help with bonding. After that, I read another book of Leah's choosing. While I was at work the next day, Leah ripped the pages out of the book my wife chose. She said she was going to tell me, but her friend, the same friend who says we aren't soulmates, said I would think she was making it up and that it seemed to her she was trying to become between me and Leah. I asked her why she didn't tell me any of this, and she explained that she didn't feel comfortable telling me because her thoughts didn't even make sense to her. She wanted me to spend time with Leah so she didn't feel left out or jealous, and when I did she felt upset I wasn't spending more time with her. She loves Leah but wishes we had our first kid together. She wants me around but also feels upset and guilty when I give her/our unborn baby attention. She said she feared that I would think she was trying to come between me and Leah, when she wasn't. By the time I realized something was truly wrong and started to ask what was wrong, if she needed therapy, etc., she said she realized she was acting poorly, but didn't want to admit to herself that she missed out on a lot with me and doubled down as it was hard to face that she made her fears reality by pushing me away and not letting me care. And that she couldn't start over, that her first pregnancy was a somewhat bad experience because of her own actions. At this point, I realized how terrible I'd been. I apologized for making her feel like she couldn't come to me about anything. She said when she researched her feelings she found a bunch of forums where people were calling the poster evil for their feelings about their stepchild, and feared I would feel the same. She said if I had told her I felt about Leah the way she felt about Leah, that it would make her angry and upset, so she couldn't see how I wouldn't be. We both cried for a long time. I tried to reassure her. I told her how much I loved her. How excited I was, that she was the family of my choosing and my soulmate, that the universe knew that Leah and I needed her, which is why circumstances allowed us to be a family. She apologized for the way she treated me, and said she wanted to make it right. She said she had wanted to apologize when I was beginning to have my meltdown, but was surprised when I yelled, and realized she might have messed up beyond repair to get that reaction from me. We continued to cry for a long time, and she asked if I wanted to feel the baby. Of course I said yes, and we cried even more. It turned out to be a great evening. I made us dinner and we laughed about how I was so stressed I went to Reddit for advice. She wanted to read the post and cried again when she did. I reassured her we could move past this and she said she felt less horrible as she read some of the comments from women in her shoes. It was a bit awkward the first week, after so many months of tension. I knew things were turning around when she woke me up by whispering baby wants blueberry pancakes that Saturday. I don't think I've ever prepared pancakes so fast, I couldn't keep the smile off my face. We ended up going to a pool party a few days later, and she let me choose her swimsuit, a big deal for someone who only wore baggy clothes around me. We took family pictures, and the universe is clearly on my side because on the way home she asked me to feel her belly and our baby was hiccuping, something I had never felt before, and it was the first we could share together. She has even let me help her when she is sick without making an excuse about Leah. I've learned that when she comes and puts her back to me and lifts her arm, that is my cue to lift her belly up. I now spend a lot of time rubbing and talking to her belly, and rubbing her feet, legs, back, shoulders, hips, haha. She is sore everywhere at this point. The first 500 times it made me cry. It has been such a relief to be involved. I never thought being tasked with acquiring the most random food items at 2 a.m. would be a great time for me. But it is. It still sucks that I missed out on a lot. I think it sucks for her too. She gets emotional and says a weight has been lifted off of her and things are so much easier, and she is upset that she didn't talk to me sooner. I have been working to fix some of my wife's guilt. I realized there were a lot of simple fixes. For example, I was able to go to my local bike shop and get a pull behind the trailer. Now, I pull her in that and she can use a small fan and ice packs, and Leah can ride her bike. I have taken off work so I can spend more time with them both. We are all in therapy and thankfully Leah's therapist is continuing to say she is securely attached to both of us, enjoys the time we spend together, is coping very well. Some of her behavior was due to another situation, which we have resolved, and she is excited to be a big sister. My wife was terrified that maybe she could sense her attitude shift, but her therapist says that she only has one complaint about my wife, that she forgot her candy one time and then it took 32 whole minutes for the store to deliver it. My wife is in therapy working to overcome the negative feelings she has. That is pretty much where we are now. We are getting very close to baby time and working hard to finish preparing. My wife still needs reassurance. There are a lot of times she brings up my ex and I've found bringing up our first helps. For example, she will ask about certain things and how it was for me. I'll say I don't want to talk about that, and steer the conversation to us. Do you remember our first house? First vacation? First kiss? Date? Remember that time blah blah? It made me fall more in love with you. Do you remember when you and Leah made me blah? That is still one of my prized possessions. It upsets me that my wife suffered for so long. I believe saying it out loud took a lot of power away from her feelings. I think most people know how badly it feels when you have thoughts that don't feel like your own when you're going through a mentally taxing time. I really should have stood up for our relationship and her mental health way sooner. I accepted her brushing me off for far too long when I should have realized she needed help. I appreciate everyone who reached out or offered advice. I posted this in detail with my wife's permission. She hopes that it helps someone out there struggling with the same feelings she felt. TLDR. My wife was facing insecurity and some mental health issues and did not feel she could reach out to me as they involved my bio daughter. Thankfully, Elle received great advice from my FIL and you all, and we spoke about it and worked it out. After some awkward times, things are somewhat back to normal and I'm able to be involved in my wife's pregnancy. Everyone, including Leah, is doing well and excited for the baby to arrive. Relevant comment. Commenter. I wonder, how is your wife moving forward regarding her friend? It seems she didn't even consider having these insecurities before she had a snake in her ear. OP, we have disinvited this friend from our home. It's hard to cut her out as she is part of my wife's larger friend group. My wife was unsure as this friend has gone through some hard things lately. However, recently my wife hosted a girls' night and her friends were arriving as I was leaving. I told her she looked beautiful and wished them a good time. When I arrived back, my wife told me this friend said in front of the whole group that I may be saying kind things to her now, but after some changes after birth I won't describe here, I will be after her. My wife said that was an unkind and untrue thing to say, and she said it was a joke. I made it very clear to my wife that I did not want her around, as we are in an emotionally vulnerable time and this person clearly does not wish us well, and she agreed. Would I be the asshole for telling my boyfriend that him being a Trump supporter gives me the ICK? Hi y'all. New account because I don't really want anybody connecting this with me. I, 20F, started dating my boyfriend, 21M, about 2-ish months ago. We've known each other for approximately 3 years. We weren't initially interested in dating, but it kinda just happened. And things have been really well except for one thing. I found out he's a Trump supporter. Now before you lecture me in the comments about how I shouldn't let politics get in the way of my relationship, please hear me out. It's just been a couple of things that have really rubbed me the wrong way about him for some reason. For context, I am a Hispanic female immigrant, fled from a country where, if I can put it in simplest terms, went to shit, who's had nothing but bad experiences with Trump supporters because almost every single time without fail, they would always say or do something extremely demeaning to myself or my family, talking about how people like us should be deported without even realizing they are referring to us, saying that people like me are a threat to the country, slut-shaming, etc. etc. I consider myself the kind of person who judges a person's character based on what they believe in, and time again, it's been proved to me that these types of people are the type I should stay away from. On the day that Trump got convicted, we started talking about politics, and he told me that he's not really a felon. The courts were unfair, there was bias, and he should have had a fair trial. Not exactly verbatim, but that's pretty much the point he made when I told him that Trump was a felon now. When we were watching The Boys, S4, and that one part where an old man was explaining to Newman that women can reject pregnancies, he agreed with that old man. When I explained to him that that's not how women work, he apologized to me, but I was still absolutely surprised that he didn't even understand such a basic thing about women. He has a sister, so it's not like he grew up without women in his life. We had a conversation about immigration, and he told me that all immigrants should be immediately deported. I told him that myself and my family are immigrants, and if that meant he wanted US to be deported, to which he said, but you guys are legal. I'm talking about the illegal ones. I told him that this type of rhetoric makes me feel unsafe, and the conversation kinda just ended there. When we were having a conversation about the Trump-Epstein relationship, he told me that it was all a conspiracy and that Trump isn't the type of person to do that. I brought up a bunch of examples of Trump being a predator, the pussy grabber stuff, heckling a 10-year-old, the creepy comments about his daughter, the flight logs, making the point that while being guilty by association isn't a thing, the other instances of him being a predator make this seem a lot more plausible. He told me that Trump never did any of that. And in a way, that kinda broke the camel's back for me, because I myself am a victim of sexual assault. And the nasty thought occurred to me that if I ever got assaulted, he probably wouldn't even believe me. That he is standing behind someone I consider a rapist means that he condones Trump's actions, and by extension, the actions of the man who assaulted me. I don't know how he, who grew up with women, and has a girlfriend, who he is fully aware of is Hispanic and an immigrant, has LGBTQ+ friends, and states that he loves people like me and his family, can even stand behind something like that. It makes me wonder if there's a side of him that he hasn't revealed to me yet, because this is a new relationship. And that makes me extremely uncomfortable. I'm asking if I WBTAH for telling him that this gives me the ick, because my own family is telling me that I shouldn't let politics get in the way of my relationship. That Trump wants people to fight each other, and that I shouldn't let Trump win. But I really don't know. Can I get some advice? Relevant comments. Cat Peacematologist, NTA. He may be speaking out of brainwashed ignorance, but even after offering your perspective, he tells you that you're wrong. If you stay with him, you will never stop having to educate this guy, and he doesn't really want to be educated, OP. Yeah, I can agree with that. Every time I invite him to do his own research, he'll always pull up a pro-Trump article and use it as evidence that I'm wrong, or ask me multiple times where I'm getting my resources until I doubt myself. He's been asking me to promise that we wouldn't let our differences in beliefs cause problems in our relationship, and I feel like I'm being babied a bit. It's been really stressing me out. Because aside from that, he's really nice to me. And a lot of my family is excited about meeting him and his family. Breaking up with him after I just announced I was dating him would cause even more problems for me, but the more I think about it, the more I realize that it will probably be for the better. I think I'm okay with carrying through with it. I'll talk to him when I see him later. I'm not really excited about it because we go to the same school. Update. Hey y'all, update here. I didn't really expect my last post to blow up or for people to tell me that this is a justifiable reason for ending a relationship, so thank you for not being judgmental. A lot of people were asking me what country my family came from, so I'll just say it since I don't think that's identifiable information. It's Venezuela. If you don't know what's happening there, then I envy you. Also, shout out to those PPL who thought this was AI generated. I find it kinda sad that this has pretty much become the state of Reddit now. Like, if you think something's AI, just don't engage with it. That's what people who post AI want from you. Don't let them win. Now on to the update. I spent the last couple of days with my dad, who was visiting me, and deleting social media and muting a bunch of politics-related stuff, because I've come to realize that regularly listening to people talk about how people like me ruin the country and how we don't belong here isn't really good for my mental health. And neither is dating someone who openly admits to supporting that group. So I talked to, now ex-BF. I went to his room instead of inviting him to mine, because I knew that if I let him in my room he would just refuse to leave until he convinced me, and I wanted to keep the power of removing myself from the situation at any time. We live in a college dorm. Firstly, I should say that I admitted to him on the day that I made my first post that him supporting a known rapist is hurtful to me, because him tolerating that behavior makes me question if he's tolerant of the POS who assaulted me, and thus, I see him in a different light. And he sent a very long text message just telling me that it hurt his feelings and that he does care about me being SA'd. I didn't really understand though, because he votes for a P***say grabber. It boiled down to, I feel terrible that you see me as the type of person who'd be okay with rape, because I'm not okay with it. I acknowledge that I might have been an AH to say that, So I started that conversation by apologizing to him and then following with me just telling him that I want to end the relationship and going back to being friends. I don't think I meant the friends part though. You can't have your cake and eat it. I can't be your friend if you affiliate yourself with a group of people who regularly shit on me. He tried to convince me to stay by saying that he really loved me and cared about me and respected my opinions. That we shouldn't let politics get in the way of our relationship. I responded that I can't change what he believes and that I value a person's beliefs and the group of people they associate with as a method of how I judge their character. I've already judged him. I don't like what I see, and therefore, I've lost my feelings for him. He told me I was making a generalization. I told him that while it is true that I might be making a generalization, we can't change the fact that in this landscape of politics, many of my rights are in the chopping block, and that I'm already starting to resent him for not really feeling listened to when I try to talk about how anxious it's making me. He told me that none of that stuff is going to happen, and that our different opinions shouldn't get in the way of our relationship. That he's voting for T*ump because he thinks he can fight inflation and cares about military members. I told him that while I can list a million reasons why that isn't true, that isn't relevant to the conversation. He then said that all his other relationships never consisted of talking about politics and that this was ridiculous. I pretty much told him that he can't have his cake and eat it. I can't date someone who associates with people who give me trouble, and that this won't be sustainable. Ending is better for the both of us. I realized that this conversation was going nowhere and decided to just leave. I told him to just give up on it already before leaving. He kept asking me to stay while he thought about what to say, but I didn't. I'm just done. I don't really feel sad. I feel so relieved. I'm going to leave social media for a while and just focus on myself for a while. I'm going to therapy too. I'll stick around to read your comments. IDK how much longer I'll be able to respond though. If I go radio silent, then just take that as a sign that I'm no longer on this app. Have a nice day. Relevant comments, Mame Dennis 1974, NTA. You don't break up with him because he gives you the ick. His support of a racist and homophobic convicted felon does not align with your values. It's not a quirky little thing. Like disagreeing on a choice of music or what team to root for in a game. BTW, he may claim to have all these diverse friends, but I can assure you that they do not consider him their friend with views like this. Anyone in your family's opinion about your relationship does not matter here. They aren't dating him. You are. The fact that you point out to him how you are an immigrant too and that doesn't seem to register at all to him. Honey, he's in a cult. There's no saving him OP. You pretty much summed up my exact thoughts on why his gay friend doesn't want to hang out with him anymore. I found out recently that there's a bit of a rift in their relationship and I didn't even start thinking about why until I learned more about him. Gosh, everyone's burning bridges. Now to the next story, story 2. Despite being the most experienced, I was overlooked for marketing team lead, and they hired an external candidate, hurting my motivation and self-esteem. Hi everyone, it's been a few months now since this happened, but I can't get past this and I guess I just want to get this off my chest in hopes that it'll help me get over it. Here we go. I've been working at the same company for over 6 years. The company is medium-sized, I would say, and at the time I was hired we didn't have a marketing department. With time the company grew, and after 1 year of working there, they offered to kickstart the marketing department. I accepted. For 2 years, I was the only person in the marketing department. I did everything all by myself. I knew how everything worked. I kept my numbers and quality high, and my manager even asked my boss to give me a bonus for my hard work. As the company grew, the work became too much for just one person, so they gave me a team. We were now 4 in total. I trained and pretty much led the team, but the thing is, my title never went past marketing agent. I thought that with all the things I'm doing, I'd at least get marketing manager by now. I expressed this to my manager, who said that they'll see what can be done. Months passed, my title remained the same, but then in a meeting with my manager one day, they told me that our boss is thinking that there should be a marketing team lead on the team. They said that they think it's going to be me as I started off the department, trained everyone, have the most knowledge, and have been in the company for 6 years now. Obviously, I got excited hearing that and I patiently waited for the boss to finally drop the news to me. The news ended up being that they were looking for a marketing team lead. And they decided to hire externally. I can't even put into words the way I felt. Even now, I still feel like I've been punched in the gut. It feels so unfair and humiliating. I was the first person in the marketing department. I have the most experience. Why would you hire someone with 0 experience instead? I asked my manager why I wasn't considered for it, and their response was basically just, "Boss just couldn't see you being a team lead." Hearing that seriously killed my self-esteem and made me feel even more humiliated. They eventually hired the person to take on the team lead role, and what made me want to slam my head against the wall is that they made me train them on everything I knew. Listen, the new team lead is a nice person and I really don't want to hate them because it's not their fault, but my bitterness is so strong, I just don't even want to interact with them unless I need help. So now, I'm stuck being marketing agent forever, I guess. But what really drove me to write this on Reddit is the new team member. One person on the team left and was replaced with someone else, who just started last month. The team lead is on vacation, so I was the one asked to train the new hire. As I was training them, we talked and I told them a little about myself, about how I started the department and everything. And then they said, "So all that just to not be team lead?" And that honestly just pissed me off. I don't know if it's their wording, their tone or the look of pity on their face that got to me, but I just shut down. I laughed it off, finished up with training and just barely worked the whole day. And the day after that. Even now I feel like my numbers are lower than usual, my quality definitely dropped, but I just can't care anymore. I know I could just quit, but this company's benefits are amazing. And I've made so many friends here that would make leaving so hard. Traveling for work every few months allowed me to see different cities and take in new experiences, but I just can't get past this, and I don't know if I ever will. I might just go through the days until I really just can't do it anymore. If you've read up until this point, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it and I really hope this situation never happens to you. Edit. Hi again, everyone. I just want to thank you all for your advice. You've all been very helpful and you've all given me the confidence to send my resume to other companies for a team lead or manager position. I'll be sending my resume to more as they pop up. The market is terrible right now, but I am pretty confident. Now I just have to act like normal in this current position until I hear from one of them. Wish me luck. For those wondering how I trained the new team lead, I did not teach them everything I knew. Hell no. I taught them enough to do their job, but when it comes to deeper knowledge, I held back. I personally just thought it was the smartest decision for me, as teaching them all I knew wouldn't have benefited me at all. It's up to my company to teach them everything else, not keep relying on me. When I was asked to train the new hire, I did mention that I shouldn't train them if we have a team lead. But boss hit back saying that I would be responsible if the team fell behind if we waited until the team lead got back from vacation. I didn't want to cause stress for the rest of the team and myself, so I, stupidly, complied. I did consider threatening to leave if I didn't get the team lead role, but I held back because I was afraid of the response LOL. I was afraid they would have just let me go and I'd be left unemployed without a backup job, especially considering the job market right now. But I guess my pride also played a part in it. I really wanted to be given the team lead role because they believed in me, wanted to give it to me, not because I threatened them. I also do quite like my job, so I thought I could suck it up, but it's really not worth the mental suffering. Huge thanks again for reading my ramblings. Have a great one, guys. Update, so, I got a job as marketing team lead. Just finished week 3. The market is rough right now, but I'm glad I didn't give up and just kept applying. My new job's a little challenging, but my mental health is in a better place now knowing I could finally, fully let go of that grudge. If you're in a similar situation, don't lose hope. When I gave in my notice, I would pay just to see the look on my boss's face again when I told them I was leaving for a marketing team lead job. They tried to match the salary match, but I declined. They asked what they could do to keep me, but I kept it polite and just said that it was time for me to experience more in a different role now. I could tell they were really pissed, but I couldn't care less LOL. And then apparently they talked smack about me to the manager, that I was betraying them and all that BS. It's so embarrassing LMAO. Of course, before I left, I asked my manager what I needed to improve on to be a better team lead so I can do even better in my new role. I was told things like, be a little more strict, have more confidence, and other things I made sure to write down to work on. And I know it's been months, but I still wanted to ask again why I was passed up the promotion at this company. So apparently it's because they made it so that the team lead did more admin work. More team reports, team evaluations, team decisions and coming up with new procedures, and less marketing. Apparently, since I'm the most senior with consistent results, they didn't want to lose that by making me team lead. So they figured keeping me as a marketing agent was the smartest move for the company. I fully understand their decision, but screw that LMAO. I feel like I'm actually doing what a team lead should be doing in my new company and that's all I really wanted. It just feels like they're still trying to figure out what a team lead should do and I'm not willing to stick around for that again. Thank you again everyone for encouraging me to look for another job. I got way too comfortable in my last job that I allowed them to walk all over me. You aren't handcuffed to a certain company forever, It's okay to leave when you feel there's no more growth for you. Have a great one, everyone.